And let's get ready to RPG!
RPG! RPG! RPG! RPG! RPG!
Hello, hello, hello. Welcome, everyone, to another exciting episode of Knights of Last Call. My name is Derek Melinda, and what are we even doing here? Well, tonight, we're going to be talking about the man, the myth, the legend, John Harper. And specifically, we're going to be talking about some of his micro games. In some cases, these games were sort of designed before Blades in the Dark, or some of his games like Aegon, which kind of eventually ended up getting made into a full game itself. But a lot of his game elements originally started with him just making these kind of for free games. Nowadays, a lot of those stuff could be found on like itch.io, but back in the day, John Harper would post this stuff on like, Google Plus forums and stuff like that. And that is how I first got to know John Harper's work. And it was during that time when, before Blades in the Dark became published, that it was just sort of being circled around as yet another one of these kind of John Harper-esque games. In any case, while obviously most people know him, most people know John Harper for Blades in the Dark, I clearly love Blades in the Dark, but a lot of my experience with John Harper has been through these micro games. And the reason why is because they kind of form the foundation or the bedrock of what I call my con bug out bag. And there's a good chance that if you in any time in the last 15 years or something or so have played in a one shot with me at a convention, or something that I ran or something like that, there was a good chance that it was probably one of these games, because I find them to be very fun, quick, easy for people to pick up. They underscore certain really cool, important, what I'll call at the time, nowadays kind of accept them as being more mainstream, but at the time they were more indie mechanics and more indie ideas. And it was a really great way to sort of expose people to these ideas of narrative-based gameplay, of mechanics informing the growth of a fiction, collaborative elements, fail forward, success at a cost, the whole rigmarole. Basically your non-trad gaming mechanics. And plus, the way that the mechanics are set up is, most of the time, I have a hard time, I often talk about that, I have a hard time playing certain games as one-shots, not because I think it's a bad game for that. It's just that I think so much of a role-playing game comes from the time spent with it, understanding and learning the process, digging into the mechanics, learning about the advancement rules, and making these choices. I think a lot of that really is where sometimes the game sings. And I know I'm sort of unusual in that, but there's kind of a weird philosophy that I have where it's like, I don't necessarily enjoy the game session while it is going on. I'm only playing the game session so that I can, when it's done, I can look back at the game session and sort of say, what did we create tonight? And what interesting things happened and what unexpected things happened. And so I like to let games breathe. And I think a lot of games are done a great disservice when they're only played as a one shot. As an example of a game recently released that I think actually does just fine as a one shot is Dragonbane. And the reason for that is because the advancement rules, while present, don't really define the game. It's just, if you roll a 1 or a 20, you get your advancement, and sure, you can try to play towards what the games are aimed at. But for the most part, your skill goes up. It's not like a ton of advancement. And yeah, sure, if you get to an 18, you get a new heroic skill. But even then, it's not tremendously that big of a deal. And I don't think the game itself is really built around this idea of character advancement. Whereas, a game like Forbidden Lands is, I think Forbidden Lands, it's all about sort of building up your character's equipment and building up your character's skills and building up your character's talents and earning XP over many sessions and building up your character's stronghold or your base of operations. And so I think that game works much better when you play it for 10 or 20 or more sessions. Anyways, So part of the reason I like these games so much is because I really feel like you can get a really good grasp of the entire game just from playing it one time. And they're very quick to explain and very quick to quick to explain, quick to read. And, at the end of the day, they're kind of like precursors into what I consider to be, more advanced games. So if you really like the taste that you got there, then, this is a great way for you to kind of get into that. All right. Woohoo. For Eldamon, we had like 80 people. And then tonight we have 27. All right. Everybody's here for the John Harper. Go figure. London, good evening. Glad to have you here. Welcome. Pathfinder PhD. Hello. I am doing fine. I'm doing better. I'm doing okay. The thumbnail, say you're Jay Harper fanboy without saying you're, well, I've said many times I'm a John Harper fanboy, so that's quite all right. I have heard of, maybe I've even listened to Dice Exploder. I'm not sure. I think I have. Bob says this subject about to send the channel to the moon, and yet, Bob, it will be one of our worst performing videos by far. Trust me. What's going on, Lance? Are you ready to? We are. Phil, howdy. But 27 of the coolest people. That is absolutely right. Yes, we're back. We're back to our normal views. Absolutely. Well, good. No pressure then. I was like, what would I do if like 150 people showed up who were really interested in learning about these small press RPGs? And you know what, Mark? I really did try to kind of hype this one up. Okay. The title is Hidden Gems, Indie RPG Micro Masterpieces. I thought that was, as far as hype goes, for me, I thought that was pretty hypeful, but I guess not. Go figure. Anyways, you guys know the routine. Thank you for joining us here. Like and subscribe if you want more of the content. Check out our Patreon if you want to hang out with these fine folks on the regular and play games with us and join our fun raffles that we're doing to give away bonus gift cards and stuff like that to Drive Through RPG and whatnot. And then we have 2 tip goals. We have a super chat goal for a Sunday bonus stream. Why not? And then we have a sort of a long-term tip goal, which hopefully we'll run through the rest of the year, or at least maybe up through Christmas time, which is I've really wanted to invest in getting a new top-down camera rig. I think part of the fun part of my hobby for me is the physical products and the physical books. And while I like showing PDFs, I'm curious to see what me being able to have the book or have the map and sort of go through it. I think that would add a lot of fun, to the nature for me, a lot of texture to the game. Furthermore, there are people who have said that they want an ASMR style stream where I basically draw dungeons. And I was like, I would need to get a new camera, that just points down on my graph paper so that I can do that. Anyways, not that that's like the reason we would do that, but anyways. So more of a long story, more of a long duration tip goal, but one of those things I aspire to is to maybe pick up a new camera. Let's see here. Mark says I need to have D&D in the title. Yeah. Meanwhile, there are 120 people watching someone flip through the 2024 DMG. Well, you know what? Fuck it, we ball. You know what? Newsflash, we're just gonna go through 2024 DMG. Psych. All right. Should have had top 10 ranking or reaction. Right. It should have been, these micro games are what, and then like a picture of me going, and of course with orange hair. The third one will shock you. See, you guys are better. See, people come up to me and they say, Derek, how do you do this? And I go, I don't know. And the answer is you all are better at this than I am. What can I say? Right. Plot twist. It's the opposite plot twist. It's a reverse hook. Okay. Well, enough having fun and talking about stuff. Let's get into the games. All right. So let me again talk a little bit about these games. And I have a link down in the description below. Most of these games, all of these games, are available at John Harper's website, 17 Design, also or through his itch.io. Most of them are free or pay what you want. I think all of them are free or pay what you want, to be honest with you. Some of these games are very undercooked. And what I mean to that is John was basically like, I'm working on this and it's not really going anywhere. But, I'm going to leave it here because I think there's some fun ideas here. Danger Patrol is a great example of that. Other games like Ghost Lines turned into Blades in the Dark. And other games like Aegon actually ended up getting fully developed and turned into a published book that you can now buy. It's a hardback book. So some of these games sort of are works in progress, beta versions that never really fully got, released. And some of them are a little bit rougher on the edges. And that's okay, because we're not looking to these systems to be a 50 session thing, right? It's designed to kind of get in, have fun, experience something, and then get out. All right. So while this is not his first release, it is one that I want to start with I want to start with World of Dungeons. So World of Dungeons is a hack of a hack of a hack, right? So, World of Dungeons is a hack of Dungeon World, which is a hack of Powered by the Apocalypse World. So World of Dungeons was John Harper's take on Dungeon World, but flipped around. Now, if you're a patron, you may have seen Bob's Birthday Bash, which was a birthday celebration we did over at the studio last year, where we all got rip-roaringly drunk, and we used this for a game of shenanigans and fun. So this entire system, okay, by the way, this is a landscape 8.5 by 11. So the character sheet is literally, the character sheet is quite literally, half a page of paper. Okay. In fact, this is Smith the Dwarf. That's the name of that character class. And one of the things that you'll notice, again, is that I have most of this stuff in print form. I carry them around in binders like this. And I basically keep like 5 or 6 indie games in these binders, and I bring these with me to conventions. This is my con bug out bag. It's a folder, but I stuff it in like a duffel bag. And this way I can basically bring everything I need in order to play a game and have a lot of fun with people who may not necessarily have the time or the inclination to really learn RPGs. I bring these because, to be clear, I bring these not just to Gen Con and Origins, but I've brought these to, Board Game Geek Con, and I've brought these to Boga Con. I've brought these to board gaming conventions as well, because, there's usually some people there who either play RPGs or have some interest in RPGs. And honestly, World of Dungeons became my go-to even over Dungeon World, because it was so simple and so quick and so direct and so easy. And the truth of the matter is, this entire game is two sides, the character sheet. But again, you get 2 character sheets on one page, okay? And then the entire rest of the rules could fit front and back on a piece of paper, right? So here's all the rules, okay, in a digest size, and then hell, the second page is just a bunch of names, So like, it's not even really a full page of rules here. Okay. Now there are leveling up rules. And traditionally I do not really use these in the way that they're intended to. I usually create incentives in the game session so that people might be able to gain a level or 2. And if you watched Bob's Birthday Bash, you also could gain experience points by doing extra bonus shots, or finishing a beer or whatever, which is where the drunkenness came into play, because, Smith wanted to level up really quick. But yeah, so it's a very simple game. I mean, as we were showing before, this is an example of the entire printout of the game. I just fold it in half, and I can literally just hand this to you, and this is everything that you need to play the entire game. And also, hold on a sec here. Let me just hop over. So this is one of my folders that I keep inside of my con bug out bag. The other thing that I do that I have in here, okay, is I just have a bunch of, if you go to, and we've talked about this before, but if you go to onepagedungeon.com, okay, onepagedungeon.com has all of these submissions for the one page dungeon contest, okay? And the whole idea is, and these are all free, these are all dungeons that people submit. They literally fit on one page. And everything that you need, they're kind of designed to be D&D-esque. And it's just, and it's perfect for, you guessed it, a single shot session of play. This one's a little bit weird, but some of these I've run multiple times just because, I have fun with it and I like seeing what different groups do. Some of them I've also gotten a sense for, whether they take longer or shorter. But these are just awesome for sitting down for 4 or 5 hours, and you pull out this rules summary. You literally explain the entire game in 15 minutes. People make their character called in 15 minutes, and boom. And then I have multiple adventures that I can run, and they just take up a couple pieces of paper. And the only thing that I need for the entire dungeon is all right here. And again, most of this is done in sort of a generic, D20, sort of D20-esque kind of OSR-esque thing, but it works fine, totally fine for a game like World of Dungeons, which is obviously a hack of a hack of a hack of Dungeon World. And so it's designed for that kind of D&D style play. Bob, question, why is it called a bug out bag? Well, I don't know where the term bugging out comes from. I think it's from the military, but if you bug out, you're getting the hell out of there. And so it's a bug out bag because, the idea is that, if shit hits the fan, you're bugging out, and it's a bag that has everything that you need. It's like an emergency bag. So for me, I call it my con bug out bag because, if I didn't plan or prep anything for the con, I don't have to plan or prep anything for the con. Everything I need to play games is in that bag. I just grab it and I can pack my clothes, I can grab the bag, and I can go to my convention, grab my dice, and then I can, go to the convention. So that's why I call it my con bug out bag. Just in case I have this emergency convention I need to go to. I mean, it has come up strangely enough before, where, back in the day when I was more social and actually did things, I'd get, somebody would message me from the game shop and be like, hey, yeah, a bunch of us are up here. You want to run an RPG for us? And I'd be like, oh yeah, sure. I'll grab my stuff and just come up there and we'll play something. Anyways, so this is a World of Dungeons character sheet. And we can see that this character is very basic. We got a name, a class, and a level. We've got our 6 attributes: strength, dex, con, int, wiz, charisma. Nothing new there. We've got a list of 9 skills, 10 skills. We have a couple special abilities, a section for weapons, equipment, armor, hit dice, hit points, coin, XP, and some notes. All right, so how does this game work? Well, it's real simple. You give everybody a character sheet, all right? And then we start over here. We roll 2d6 for each attribute, just right down the row, like classic old school D&D. On a 6 or less on your 2d6 roll, then you put a 0. If you get a 7, 8, or 9, it's +1. On a 10 or 11, it's +2. On a 12, the value is +3. So our attributes are going to range from 0 to +3. All right? Now, before we get into anything else, what is this game essentially about? Well, this game is what I call the one move Powered by the Apocalypse game. This game is Powered by the Apocalypse distilled down to its most basic element, which is, unlike other Powered by the Apocalypse games, some of which have a dozen moves, some of which have many moves and have special bonus moves on your play sheet and all this other stuff. This game only has one move, okay? And it's the only move in the entire game. When you attempt something risky. All right? Hey, Brayflocks. Cheers.
Brayflocks tipped $25. I'm doing my part.
Whenever, I want to maybe I want to create a thing that I can make pop on the screen, from Starship Troopers, where that little kid's I'm doing my part. Thank you, Brave Flocks. I really appreciate that. Again, it's exactly the only good bug is a dead bug. Exactly, Derek. Right on thing. And then, would you like to know more? Oh God, we should totally have that. Like when I go off on a tangent, I should be like, would you like to know more? And then like a poll pops up, and then you guys can vote, for whether you would like to know more. Would you like to know more? Any case, Brave Flocks, thank you so much for that. And again, I haven't had the fun opportunity to buy new gear and stuff like that for a while. So, it's been a while since I've invested in our audio visual, and I feel like there's an opportunity here for me to get some cool new stuff so that we can do some different kind of streams. And I think having like a top-down rig would make it a little bit more interesting. Okay. So, like in a Powered by the Apocalypse game, you're rolling 2d6 and you're adding a modifier. Now, in most Powered by the Apocalypse games, this is determined by the move. Like if the move is hack and slash, it'll say roll 2d6 plus strength. Or if the move is spout lore, it might say 2d6 plus intelligence. Instead, this says whenever you attempt something risky, sum 2d6, I believe in roll 2d6 and add one of your attribute scores based on the action you're taking. The GM will tell you some of the possible consequences before you roll so you can decide if it's worth the risk or if you want to revise your action. So basically, you're going to, describe things and the GM will respond. And if you do something risky, he might say, roll dex or roll whiz or roll strength based on what everybody feels is right. So you're only just rolling one of these 6 attributes, right? And then you're going to add that bonus, which will be 0, 1, 2, or 3. And of course, like a Powered by the Apocalypse game, if you roll a 6 or less, it's a miss. Things don't go well, and the risk turns out badly, right? So it's not that nothing happens. It's that something bad happens, right? The situation gets noticeably worse. So yes, basically, Phil, every roll is you messed me up with the face danger. It's a defy danger is what it's called in Dungeon World. Yes, it's called defy danger. Now, keep in mind here that like some of this stuff, you might read this and you might go, wow, this kind of sounds like some of the future stuff that you might have seen of John Harper. It is a distinct possibility. All right. So on a 7, 8, or 9, right, this is the core essence of Powered by the Apocalypse logic, right, which is on a 6 or less, it's not only that you didn't do it, right, it's that you failed and the situation gets worse, or there's a new consequence, or there's a new threat, right? The situation's always evolving. It's never, all right, well, you tried to climb and you failed, and now you're just at the bottom and nothing else about the situation has changed. It's always something changing. It may not be something that you wanted to have happen, but it's always dynamic and it's always evolving. So on a 6 or less, things don't go well and the risk turns out badly. And remember, the GM is going to sort of give you the sort of heads up about what those risks could be so that you can decide, do I even want to roll or do I want to redefine what I'm doing? On a 7, 8, or 9, again, the core of PBTA philosophy here, a partial success. You do it, but there's some cost, some compromise, some retribution, some harm, etc. Now, again, this is a very basic game. There's not a lot of descriptions and there's certainly no GM help section. But the most important part here is you do it, but the GM gets to, apply some sort of compromise. On a 10 or more, you get a full success. You do it without any complications. And this game actually throws in, because it's D&D, right? A total of 12 or more is a critical success. You do it perfectly along with some extra benefit or advantage. So Derek, to be clear, so Vincent Baker was working on Apocalypse World, and while it was still technically being released, Adam Koebel and Sage Torres started making Dungeon World, and John Harper was definitely aware of all of this. And sort of after those games kind of came out / were being kind of worked on, he decided to make his own hack of Dungeon World that was even more simple and more basic and broke down, almost more like if Dungeon World was like basic D&D, then World of Dungeons is like 1974 OD&D, right? It's like the most old school. So, all of this stuff was kind of being talked about in the same, areas. But to be clear, John was inspired by the work that the Dungeon World folks were doing. And the Dungeon World folks were very clearly taking their pages from the work that D. Vincent Baker had already produced. All right. So we've got our crit, we've got our miss, we've got our partial success. Now, there's an extra addendum here. we do have that skills list. We saw it up here. Now, for me, this is a little interesting because this is pretty old. I don't know how old World Dungeons is, but it's pretty old. But this is actually some tech that I think you see now in some of the modern Magpie games, which is that the way that the skills work is it sort of changes what your failure outcome is. All right. And so skills, if you have an applicable skill, then you can't miss. A roll of a 6 or less still counts as a partial success, but with an even bigger compromise or complication than a 7, 8, or 9. So in this version of the game, this is very similar, by the way, to the difference between trusting fate and use a roguish skill from Root, or use your skills in training, or press your luck from Avatar Legends. So, you know, there you go. It's from 2012. So 12 years ago. So if our character, for example, had athletics or decipher or heal, if that was applicable to whatever action we were taking, and we did manage to roll a 6 or less, instead of getting a failure and the situation gets worse, we still succeed. We literally cannot fail on one of our skills. But the question is, what price are we going to pay for that success? So it makes it very simple, very basic. And more importantly than that, if your skill, if it's something you're skilled in, you know you can't fail it. And there's something very empowering about that, especially in the context of a one-shot game. You know that, now granted, don't get me wrong, you might roll a 6- and it might cause things to spiral wildly out of control, but at least you succeeded. And that means that the action keeps going forward, and it keeps being fun, and it keeps getting to, you know, push forward, right? Success with a complication is like the ultimate boon, because the player still feels good because they passed, but then the situation can get, you know, more gnarly, which is pretty cool. All right, so that's it. That's the entire game. You roll those dice when it's risky, and if you roll 6-, you miss. If you 7, 8, or 9, partial success. 10 or more, full success. 12 or more, critical success. And if you have a skill, then you can't fail. All right, so when you make a character, you roll some ability scores, you choose one skill, any skill that you want, in addition to one that you get from your class. You get some hit points, which you roll. And in fact, every time you rest, you completely re-roll your hit points. All right. So it changes from rest to rest. And then your class gives you another skill, and you basically choose 2 abilities, and they're very basic, right, from the list. So, you know, if the fighter chooses skirmish, they do +1 damage, and whatever armor they're wearing counts as 1 type lighter. And if they choose slay, they do an additional 2 points of melee damage. So you could choose skirmish and slay, and you get to do +3 bonus damage in melee. Or you could choose slay and hardy and pick up +6 hit points. Or maybe you want to be a tanky tank and take tough, which is +1 armor, and hardy and get +6 extra hit points, right? So very basic. And by the way, they don't even care about this, because, you know, they've got the fighter and the thief and the cleric, but they also have make your own class. Just choose a class skill and 2 special abilities. In fact, so you can just make it up. In fact, this character here, Smith the dwarf, Smith put as his class, he wrote down Rune Guard, and his character had hardy, tough, and skirmish, not slay. Hardy, skirmish, tough, and then he had ritual and cantrips. So, you know, Aaron kind of made a fighter mage, you know, by just choosing different class skills. So very basic, very simple. You know, they're very fun. They're very effective. They just, you know, give you more damage, or they give you a bonus to certain things. It's very, very, very basic, but it is very fulfilling. All right. And that's it. I mean, you know, there's some rules here, you know, very basic. There's light weapons that do D6 damage. There's martial weapons, which do D6 +1 damage, and great weapons, which do D6 +2 damage. Really, really simple. Armor works as damage reduction. Armor 1 absorbs 1 point. Light armor gives you 1 point of damage reduction. Full armor gives you 2 points of damage reduction, and a shield gives you an additional point of damage reduction. And you could buy some adventuring gear and fire oil, and, you know, I don't know why they put crazy stuff like here, but, you know, they do. And then that's it. And then you get 1 experience points for every silver piece worth of treasure or coin that you loot from the dungeon. You also get XP from defeating enemies and completing quests. 10 XP for something easy, up to 200 for a really tough one. but it's mainly about the looting. And I have used this system to play those one-page dungeons so many times. I've used this many times to run Keep on the Borderlands and the Caves of Chaos. I've used this to run Sunless Citadel, and it's very fun and it's very effective. And for me, this is like, I think this is like the best way, better than Shadow Dark, better. This is like the best way to introduce people, I think, who've never played a role-playing game before to the idea of Dungeons & Dragons. And unfortunately, once they play this, I don't think they'll ever want to play Dungeons & Dragons again. Now, it requires a GM who is capable of, being ad lib, right? And going with the flow and coming up with cool ideas and consequences and complications. So, there's that downside. But assuming that you're confident in your ability to do that, I think World of Dungeons is like, for me, this is like the GOAT. This is like the best go-to game of all time, like for cons. I think it's just fantastic. Lady Blackbird might coming close, but maybe Lasers of the Field. All right, there's a couple. All right, so that is going to be it for World of Dungeons. All right, next, and again, if there's any, I'll wait a moment. Are there any questions or comments or things that people want to ask about World of Dungeons before we move on to the next game? I don't know that we're going to get through all the games, but I'm going to try to get to at least 3, maybe 4. 5 if we have time. All righty. Looks like the answer is no. How are we doing here? Hey, we're almost up to 50 people. Awesome. Welcome, everybody. All right. So that was the special. That was the first game we looked at, World of Dungeons, one of my favorites. All right. The next game is also, hey, Thaddeus. Cheers. Thank you.
Thaddeus tipped $25. Fun and exciting, just like a top-down camera setup. It's interesting hearing about the micro games I've never heard of.
Yeah, Thaddeus, I think these are really awesome. And I mean, they really show you the power that just a couple simple mechanics. Now, we talk about games being complex and complicated. And, to me, complicated games are ones that have a lot of moving parts and a lot of, depth to them, right? There's a lot of little doodads and bonuses and little fidgety things, and that can be fun. But that's usually what adds to the page count, right? But sometimes games can be really surprisingly deep, even though they seemingly have a very simple premise. And I have found that, that we can just get some amazing games that come out of this. And it shows you the power of what just a couple core mechanics that are really tied into what you're trying to do can produce in a game. So thank you so much for that. And I also think having a top-down camera would be a lot of fun. I think it'll be a lot. And you know what? And then now maybe I could finally get away from using VTT and I can go like full Ben style where he just, instead of a VTT, he literally just cameras his tabletop. Anyways, thank you, Thaddeus. All right. So the next game that I want to talk about is going to be Danger Patrol. Now, Danger Patrol is another one of my con staples, and this is a game that never really made it out of the beta test. And Danger Patrol is basically a sci-fi kind of Flash Gordon, Buck Rogers style of game, right? Very pulpy, very over the top. Now, remember, this game came out in 2010, so before some of these other games had come out. And Danger Patrol is one of my all-time favorites. All right. Now, as before, it's basically printed out as landscape. All right. And you can see here the beta test dates back to 2009. And the steps to play the game are gather everyone at the table, introduce the style cards, introduce the role cards, talents, powers, create names, introduce the heroes, introduce Rocket City and the solar system, start the show, action, round 2, interlude, suspense. All right. And here's what you need. You need the character sheets printed from this PDF and cut in half to make 8 style cards and 8 role cards. So in this game, so this is an example. I think it's at the back of the book. Yeah. So these are basically, you would print these out. Okay. And the way this works is the left side is a adjective and the right side is sort of your role. Okay. So, and these could be mixed and matched. In fact, you could see that there are 8 skills, or there are 8 ability scores, if you want to call them that. And half of them are on the left side and half of them are on the right side. So you can mix and match this, right? So, and in my case, what we have is this is my Danger Patrol bag. You can see it's labeled Danger Patrol. So what I have done over the years is these are laminated. So this way people can just use, I give them dry erase markers, because this way they can make their characters and we can just erase them. And then what we do is I take these and I separate them, okay, into the different, so this is like a pile of roles, all right? And then this is the pile of adjectives. And then we can just, shuffle them up and deal, and people can literally just draw random cards. So for example, we could trap it up and you could be like, okay, you are the intrepid agent, all right? Or, ooh, you are the robot daredevil. Ooh, you are the atomic commando, right? And so you just mix and match these role cards and these whatever they're called, agent cards or something, style cards, style and role. All right. And so that makes your character. So it's very simple, very quick. And again, mine are laminated and people can just use dry erase markers. Okay. Then you have some GM stuff. You have your GM sheets and basic rule summary. Everybody, very simple. Everybody gets, this is the rule summary of the entire game. So it's just one page. And then the players, by the way, you can see that this is definitely in beta. This is like the last section of the book where it's like, yeah, so this is something in progress. Okay. Something in work here. And then every player also gets this, and you can see it's literally designed to fold in half and just let people kind of go through it, or cut it in half rather, and give half. So these are the heroic actions that you might do in the game and what you would roll. If you're sneaking around and ambushing bad guys, well, then that's roll agent. If you're shooting enemies, battle tactics, staying cool under fire, roll commando. If you're running, jumping, slipping, parkouring, roll daredevil, right? If you're finding a clue, roll detective, right? If you're flying a rocket car upside down, if you're zipping around in your custom rocket pack, roll a flyboy, right? If you're punching evil in the face, make a warrior check, right? Very basic. So the way this game works is you shuffle it up. You shuffle up your character. All right, there we go. And so here you go. Here's the opening speech. In fact, the game is, you just walk through this, all right? Like, it tells you everything that you need to do. Here, you literally say this to the group. We're going to play Danger Patrol, an action-adventure retro sci-fi game. The idea is to create the episodes of a 50s-style TV show in the vein of the old Flash Gordon and Buck Rogers serials, with maybe a dash of the Venture Brothers, Star Wars, and Indiana Jones. You're all going to play members of the elite Danger Patrol, special superpowered crime fighters who protect Rocket City from the evil Stygian adepts, the nefarious agents of the Crimson Republic, rampaging monsters set loose by mad scientists and other crazy threats. To make your Danger Patrol hero, you're going to pick a style and a role. Your style tells us what kind of being you are: a robot, a mystic, a cybernetic atomic, or something else. Your role tells you what your job is on the team. Are you a super spy agent, an elite soldier commando, or a wily detective? Are you ready? Let's go. All right. So then I put the things out. I have people randomly roll, or I just have them grab them, whatever seems interesting to them, right? They just grab them, and then they grab their style, right? And then they grab their role. So this is an example of a style. This is the left side of your sheet. And 4 of your traits are going to go here. This also gives you your talent, which is basically a way that lets you kind of break the rules of the game a little bit. And of course, you'll have 2 of these, right? Because both sides of your character will have one of these. So, in this case, when you're atomic, you have a cyborg body. Okay. Then you will have a power, which is a maneuver you can use for the cost of a power token. This symbol right here means power token. And when you see power token, for me, think poker chip, like I'm handing you a poker chip. All right. You'll earn power tokens by getting into danger. So there's a meta currency here, right? When you get into danger, you gain power tokens. You can use power tokens to do your coolest, biggest stuff. Lastly, you have special abilities, and these are very generic, and they have a series of, and again, I'm using mine with dry erase markers. Basically, these are cool special abilities, stunts, training, knowledge, abilities that help you by giving you a bonus die. When you use a bonus die, you just check off that plus. All right. When you use a bonus die, mark it off. You can refresh some of these during an interlude scene, so it's just really easy to erase it. And again, it's just describe it in the fiction. Like if somebody was trying to stop, I don't know, the Crimson Republic's car from getting away, and the atomic warrior was like, I grab onto the ship before it goes away. I'm like, okay, well, make a danger roll. And he's like, yeah, I'm going to use my atomic strength to give myself a bonus. My reactor core goes into overdrive. And I'm like, okay, cool. So he would mark off one of these pluses and he would get a bonus die to the roll. And then lastly, down here, so you'll accumulate your power over here. Technically, you can just write it into this bubble, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But I like to give people little poker chips. But you can spend it to do a hit, to reduce a hit, or to activate one of your powers that requires a power token, which is, again, this danger patrol kind of symbol here. All right. And then your danger meter is very important. As your character goes into the game, your danger meter goes up. All right. In this game, danger is your friend. And they usually actually recommend in the game that you use a paperclip. And so I don't know. Well, yeah, we'll get here. But you can see that you start off with no danger. And then as the game progresses, all right, you are going to accumulate more danger. And the idea here is that you put a paper clip here at the bottom. And as your character accumulates, now you could also just use your little, in my case, because it's laminated, you can just use a black, dry erase marker. But anyways, as your character accumulates danger, you're going to move this to the right. Okay. As you move it to the right, every time it passes one of these danger icons, you get another power point. So as your character gets into more danger, they get more power points. However, if your character takes a hit, okay, they are going to take the hit depending on which spot your danger is. So if we took a hit right now, we would get bashed, okay? But if we took a hit over here, okay, we would become stunned. And again, remember the character sheets kind of flow into one another. So if our danger kept going up, you could see that, by the way, the power points start coming faster and more furious. Okay, but now we're in the injured box, and now we're in the KO'd box. By the way, you'll also see a ×2 here. This means that all of our dice, all of our attributes, we now roll 2 dice instead of 1 when we make a check. And then if we get our danger all the way over to the right side, we are in the vaporized box. But all of our dice rolls are made at ×3. So this means that basically if we get hit, we're in so much danger, our character's going to basically explode. But we're going to be rolling a ton of dice for this. Is this pre-blades? Yes, this is pre-blades. But again, you can see, some of the thought process that is going through this. All right. So then we have our roll cards and our talents, right? These are like the kind of the class, right? The agent or whatever. Then no 2 players should have the exact same combo of style and roll. Then you distribute your trait dice. You get a D12. So these go into those. These go into the. Oh goodness. There we go. These go into those 8 boxes, right? These are your agent, commando, right? The different skills. One of them gets a D12 in your main roll, which is decided by what you have, and then you get a D10. 2d8, a 3d6, and a d4 to put them into the other 7 traits. So basically your traits, okay, will be rated at, for example, you might have agent of d12, commando of d10, daredevil of d8. Your detective might be d4, right? Your character's like a badass sniper, super secret agent, but is a crappy detective, right? So you put a D4 in your detective. So one of yours will have a D4, one of them will have a D12, and the rest will have sort of D10s, D6s, and D8s. And then when you do that thing, you roll that die. So if we had a D12 in agent, when we went and did agent stuff, we would roll a D12. And If we had a D4 in detective, when we went into detective stuff, we'd roll a D4. All right. Then you choose your uniform colors. Very important. Every hero wears the two-toned Danger Patrol uniform. And then choose your weapon, which does almost nothing. Ray gun, electro blaster, or turbo rifle. All right. And then there's like a, what do the symbols mean? They kind of tell you, some of these things, some of the powers mean, this helps an ally. Some of them mean it's defensive power. If it's a crosshair, it means it's an attack, All right. So the plus symbol that we saw before is a bonus die. When you add a bonus die to a roll, the first bonus die you add to a roll is D10. The second, if you mark 2 boxes, then you get a D10 and a D8. If you mark 3 boxes, you get a D10, a D8, and a D6, and you can't add more than 3 dice to a roll. All right. So again, if our character were, I don't know, let's say we're going in hot, and we're gonna, try to, steal the Kajardian crystal from the overdrive, and we come in there and we're like, okay, we're gonna tick our atomic strength, and I'm going to use my Z-ray vision, and I'm using my atomic speed. So we would mark off these 3 pluses, and our character would roll agent, which is D12. But then we would also get a bonus D10, a bonus D8, and a bonus D6, right? So we're building a dice pool. All right. So here's an example of the commando. This is the right side of our thing here, okay? So we've got the guns blazing ability. Remember, every character's going to have 2 special abilities depending on your style and role. And you can see that they have a bunch of other equipment and all this other stuff. Now, most of this is just for flavor. I mean, they all fundamentally do the same thing. They give you a bonus die. But, it's got to match the fiction. That's all, So when your character talks about pulling out their smoke grenades to cover their escape, then you mark it and you get your bonus die. But if you're using your smoke grenades to detective work, it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense, right? Then you create a name for your character, and that is basically it. Your character is done. All right. Then there's this other thing, which again, you read as the GM, which is you talk about Earth was destroyed 50 years ago in the atomic wars. Just before the end, hundreds of rocket ships escaped Earth. Most of them went to Mars, where the richest man in the entire solar system, millionaire Hamilton Hawks, had built a giant utopian city of the future called Rocket City. Rocket City is all Art Deco, silvery spires, glass, chrome, steel. Its vertical cities have many levels with skyscrapers thousands of feet tall, sprawling across Olympus Mons. Everyone gets around via rocket car, funneled into magnetically controlled traffic lanes. Magna Zeppelins cruise majestically at the highest of altitudes, carrying heavy cargoes across the massive city. Right, so it's very like pulp 50s, radio dramas, and it's very tied into that pulp era. Okay. By the way, as part of that, right, the commies are the bad guys. The other major human settlement is the Crimson Republic in Jupiter's red spot. The Crimson Republic is a militaristic nation ruled by the despot Grand Commander Zukov, a head in a jar attached to a robotic spider body, because of course it is. The Crimson Republic is obsessed with perfecting atomic technology, now banned in Rocket City, and turning their population into atomic super soldiers with which to conquer the solar system. The Crimson Republic is the catch-all, commie, Red Scare, evil empire, bad guy group. Right? So, again, it's very much, tied into that sort of, idea here. And then there's like the Neptunians. Pluto is home to the Stygian Adepts, an evil cult from the 5th dimension who worship entropy. Is there any information? No, you're just making this all up, and it's designed for a one-shot, all right? And then we start the show. All right? Now, this is immediately where, right, the game explodes. All right. To start the game, the GM will describe the opening sequence to the episode of Danger Patrol. Then the players will do their previously narrations, and then we jump into the action. All right. Each episode of Danger Patrol begins with an opening teaser, which shows the patrol in some perilous life or death situation that looks helpless. A cliffhanger, if you will. All right. The GM will create a short opening teaser as a part of the game prep. So this is like the one prep that you do. It should be short and pumped. So think of this as this is literally, right, the scene that, throws you right into the action, right? You can almost think of this as like the engagement role. like when you watch a TV show and it's like the scene that happens right before the opening credits, right? So, and they give you some examples of them. All right. So for example, this is what you would say, right? This is literally this is the only prep that you would have to do is this prep is called the Jeweled Court of Saturn, right? Yeah. So exactly. Cold open. You guys are pro. Okay. Princess Anyana sits upon the sapphire throne of Saturn for the first time, her eyes ablaze with strange blue light. Behind her, lurking in the shadows, the evil Duke Lokesh speaks under his breath. His words are repeated by the princess on the throne as if in a trance. You have been found guilty of espionage against the crown. The sentence is death. The courtiers in the room gasp and turn to look out of the great, multifaceted windows of the throne room tower to the floating execution platforms hovering in the great cloud sky beyond. Each platform holds one member of the Danger Patrol, affixed to a jade pillar with chains of pure adamant. Out of the shimmering rings above, the executioners descend, creatures of legend. A flight of rare crystal dragons, shrieking and beating their 6 wings as they swoop down upon their prey. And then this is like where the title sequence, right, would hit, right? So it's a cold open, boom. You know, our Danger Patrol is imprisoned on these platforms. The Princess Anya is being, mind controlled by the evil Duke Lokesh, and we've just been sentenced to die. We have no idea why. We have no idea where. We have no idea how. This is the start of the game. And you can actually see here, a little bit below here, the whole game is done using note cards or Post-it notes, all right? Every threat gets a Post-it note. And some of them have what's called a countdown clock, like the Sapphire Throne, okay? So very basic, very stuff. You can see here we have, in this case, our game has 3 heroes, right? We have Dr. Nemo, Cindy Cannon, and Andrew Mentem. And there's 3 crystal dragons coming down to our floating platforms. We have the Sapphire Throne over here with Princess Ananya. And then there's the Aura of Urgash, which is linked to the dragon's resistance of 3. Okay? Now, after the GM, by the way, here's another one. This is Attack of the Crimson Apes. And I've run this one actually several times. Okay? So it's a cold open. All right? So that's the opening teaser. Then you could think of it being like, after the teaser, the opening credits and theme song play. Then the announcer says, previously on Danger Patrol. Now the players narrate, right? Each player should describe a quick sequence from the previous episode, right? Spotlighting what their hero did. Which previous episode? Though you're making it up. It didn't actually happen, all right? So it gives you a chance to bring something into the game, into this, current narrative. So, for example, Leslie is playing a mystic hero. All right, so that's our PC, Leslie, and she's playing a mystic hero, and she wants the Stygian Adepts to be involved in the Crimson Ape attack. Remember, I said that one of the other trailers was the Crimson Ape. During the previously on moment, she describes how we see her hero exploring an old ancient Martian ruin with strange hieroglyphics on the walls, depicting Stygians controlling animals with dark magic. The Stygians, she whispers. I knew it. Now, how did she know that they needed to be controlling animals? Because I just told them that an ape was attacking, right? Like if we wanted to flip this around, right, we could have her like, from our Saturn example of the crystals, she might do the same thing of she might see an ancient Stygian ritual to reawaken the sapphire dragons. And she's like, the Stygians, I knew it. So every player goes around and basically just comes up with something. And it says here, while the players are doing their previously on narrations, the GM is furiously taking notes. GM, it's your job to work these elements into the upcoming episode in some way. Now, they don't all have to be in the first scene, but you should start to try to introduce some of them with clues and stuff that lead on to the others. So during that previously on sequence, when Leslie's talking about the Stygian Adepts, the GM quickly grabs an index card and writes Stygian Adepts on it and puts it off to the side. The players see it and know that the evil Stygians are now involved and waiting in the wings. Another player creates the Anti-Robot League during his previously on, so the GM makes a card for them too, along with a location bar, Lud's Bar, as a reminder to do something with the league in the bar later. This may seem challenging, but think of it this way. The players are creating all your threats and all your dangers for you. Just take a few notes and you'll end up with everything that you need. And then we start the action scene. And this is what the action scene looks like. We put down markers and we put down threats. All right. A marker is just a half an index card with somebody's name on it, right? So every hero gets a marker. It's like your pawn, it's your piece, your mini. Next, the GM creates the threats. A threat is anything that presents a dangerous challenge to the heroes, from a monstrous crimson ape to a raging fire to a seductive enemy agent. Creating a threat is easy. Just put a marker on the battle board and write the name of the threat on top of it. A countdown threat gets a countdown number on its marker. Put a circle around it. This means that after that number of rounds, if that threat is still on the board, it will come true. At the end of each round, reduce the countdown number by 1. The GM will say what horrible things threaten to happen if it comes true. Lastly, there are stage threats. You might have to defeat threat A before you could defeat threat B. Have minions that are staged between the master and the villain. The PCs have to beat the minions before they can attack the master villain. And every round, the villain is untouched. He can inflict a disaster. All right? Resistance means that you can ignore hits or ignore threats. All right? I'm not getting too much into the details of this, but here we go. You can see here, this is the attack of the Crimson Apes. So the players are flying around in their rocket car, which is the Hawks 5000 rocket car, right? So we have a marker for that. We've got 4 of our characters in there: Dr. Nemo, Andromentum, Rusty Bucket, and Professor Bradbury. And the Crimson Ape, which is a threat. We know it's a threat because it's red, and that's jumped onto the car. There's another set of Crimson Apes that are over in the traffic. And then we could see that there are 2 countdown threats, which is Rocket Car in Trouble, it's being attacked by a Crimson Ape, and Traffic Overlord 2. So Rocket Car in Trouble has a 1 on it. That means if the players don't do something to it this round, that threat is going to come true, right? And the Rocket Car might get attacked or destroyed by the Crimson Ape, and maybe some innocents will get killed, and so on and so forth. So that's the way threats work. Very simple. And so now we get into the actual game, right? So what do we do? Well, we ask who goes first. Several players should be leaning forward, desperate to jump into action and save Rocket City. When a player takes their turn, they will say what heroic action their character takes. The action should be short, punchy, with one added detail to give it some colors. I jump onto the back of the Hawks 5000 and level my ray gun at the ape. Sorry, Shaggy, this ride is full. I zap him off the car and onto the rooftop patio of a passing restaurant. Roll the dice. The GM will decide which trait needs to be tested. For example, if we're shooting a ray gun, maybe that falls under the commando trait, whereas piloting the rocket car would be a flyboy. If we are attempting to communicate with the ape, maybe that's an explorer role. So that's those D12, D10, D8 that we assigned at the beginning of the character sheet. Now, remember, we can also then mark bonus dice, right, with those pluses on our character sheet. But there's also danger dice. And if you know Devil's Bargain, this will sound very familiar. Now the fun stuff. The player can add 1, 2, 3 danger dice. And there's a reason I have a bunch of red D6s. To do so, she adds details to her actions that shows just how dangerous it is. Okay, well, I'm leaping out of the seat of a moving rocket car. 1 danger die. I balance on the sloping trunk and duck as other rocket cars are whizzing by my head. 2nd die. And oh yeah, I'm also facing down a 12-foot tall crimson ape who is raising both fists to smash my head. Add a 3rd danger die. You can add 1 detail per die, or just say all the danger and pick up 1 to 3 dice from the bowl. Now, you don't have to add danger, okay? All right. But, I'm sorry, you don't have to add 3 points of danger, okay? But you need to add at least 1 point of danger. Still want more danger? Okay, after you've added up to 3 points of danger, you can ask the other players and the GM to give you even more danger. One player can give you one more die by adding another dangerous detail. The GM can also give one die by adding a dangerous detail. So the most dice that you can end up with from danger dice is 5. The other players and the GMs add more danger to the action. Okay, just as you jump onto the truck of the rocket car, Dr. Nemo, that's my character who's driving, I have to swerve to avoid hitting a school bus, and your character almost goes flying off. And then, the GM goes, oh, also, everyone knows that Crimson hate yellow. Isn't your uniform yellow? Right? So you're getting those D6s to your dice pool. Then you can mark your bonus dice. That's the D10, D8, D6. So when it's all said and done, we're going to have one attribute die, a handful of danger dice, and then some bonus dice, right? Which are going to range from D10 to D8 to D6. Then, so here we have a very nice example of this. The Mystic Commando is shooting some bad guys. The GM says that shooting is a commando action. So Sergeant Shadow takes a D12 from their commando trait and puts it into the die pool. So there's our D12. Ryan wants more danger, so he adds danger. When Sergeant Shadow fires at the Stygians, they hurl blasts of netherworld energy at him. He has to run and dive for cover as he shoots. He's taking 3 danger dice. All right. Ryan asks the other players and GMs to give him more danger dice. The GM says, all right, you're diving for cover, and then you look up to see the crates that you just hid behind say, danger, explosives. The GM gives an extra danger die, but everyone at the table says that this should be worth 2 dice. So everyone laughs and goes ahead and gives it to him, right? So now Ryan's up to a D12 and 5 D6. Ryan really wants to get rid of these Stygians, so he decides to use some of his bonus dice. He marks off 1 plus for his ray gun and another plus for his mystic abilities, the Black Mists of Malachar. Ryan says how Sergeant Shadow uses the mist to obscure the vision of the Stygians so they can't avoid his attack. Because he's adding 2 bonus dice, it means he adds a D10 and D8. So our final dice pool is a D12, a D10, a D8, and 5 D6. And then we roll them all. Each die that shows a 4 or higher is a success. Each die that shows a 1, 2, or a 3 is a danger, right? If you're fighting a threat, you do a hit for each success that you rolled. Think of it as a point of damage. The GM will mark an X on that threat card for each hit that you did. The number of hits that a threat takes depends on its level. A normal threat, a minion, a monster, a problem, is defeated in 1 to 3 hits. A major threat, like a gang of minions, a tough monster, a serious problem, is 4 to 6 hits. An elite threat, 7 to 9, and a master threat, 10 to 12. GM, you don't have to tell the players what level a threat is. Just mark hits as you go and remove the threat when it takes the right amount. Yes, this means you can fudge and make something weaker or tougher on the fly. That's totally in the spirit of the game. Remember, this is not a game about, this is not a competition-based game. This is not combat as sport. It's not even combat as war. It's combat as story. It's combat as narration. All right. So while I like to, declare, I don't want to make the master villain only have 2 hits. That seems really lame and weak sauce. But, I typically give the player some indication of it, but you don't have to be held to danger to that. Anyways, for each 1, 2, or 3 you roll, you get a danger. For each danger result you rolled, your danger meter goes up by 1. Slide your paperclip to the right 1 dot for each danger. As your danger meter goes up, you get rewards. For every Danger Patrol lightning icon you cross, you get a power token. All right. So let me just go here. All right. Here's the funny thing about Danger Patrol. Threats take action only as a result of what the players do or fail to do. The GM doesn't get a turn of their own. When a player rolls and gets danger, look at the total number, look at the threat moves menu and choose a move that matches the amount of danger that they rolled. You can also choose a fewer things with lower danger values. Also keep an eye on any threats that went unharmed during a round, i.e. no PCs did any hits to them. Before the round ends, these threats can make moves from the menu. All right. So when a reduced hit means that they can mark a lower box. A full hit means they have to mark a hit box at their current danger level, which means if our character is all the way over in the vaporized section and they take a full hit, they have to mark it in the vaporized section. Otherwise, if it's a reduced hit, they can mark it to their lowest unoccupied box. All right. And they give us an example of this. Now, what can our threats do? Remember, this is how much they cost. We can escalate the threat. We can do a reduced hit to the PCs. We can introduce a new threat for 3 points of danger. For 4 points of danger, we can do a full hit to the PCs. And for 5 dangers, we can unleash a total disaster. So, here's an example of Matt rolls his dice and gets 4 danger from his roll. So he slides his paperclip over 4 spots. 1, 2, 3, 4. It's now in the injured section. The GM makes a threat move, attacking Matt's character. The GM uses 4 points of danger to do a full hit to the PC. A full hit means you have to mark it in the section where your danger is. All right. Matt marks an injured box. There are 2 injured boxes, so a character can be injured twice. The lower box and blank line is for writing in your own injury type. Matt also earns a power token since his danger level went up and crossed a lightning bolt token. All right. So on and so forth. Bashed means you're fine. Stunned means you need 5s to roll rather than 4s. Injured reduces one of your trait die. KO'd means you're unconscious. And vaporized means, well, you're vaporized. All right. Then we keep going around until the round is over. And then we start the next round. Eventually, all the threats will be defeated. Good job, Danger Patrol. The citizens cheer. The heroes sign autographs. And then we go into an interlude. All right. Interludes happen between action scenes. All right. And an interlude is a brief bit of role-playing or narration. This could be short and punchy. Oh, sorry. They should be short and punchy, no more than a minute or 2. They're a chance for the players to narrate some cool stuff, role-play with each other, recover from the action, and most importantly, set up questions to be answered in the next part of the game, which is a suspense scene. All right? So include your PC, say where you are, role-play. If you want to, you can introduce a clue or a possible future threat, and then refresh 3 of your pluses, aka you can erase the marks so that they can use again. Optionally, you can reduce your danger. Think of it this way. The first action scene is an in media res slam bang thing, but we don't know why it's happening yet. Then we get the first batch of interludes. The players will introduce little moments and ideas, which the GM can use to create the batch of questions for the suspense scene coming up next. All right. Then we go into a suspense scene. Now, a suspense scene, there are 3 types of scenes in Danger Patrol: action, interlude, and suspense. Action scenes are for fighting bad guys. Interludes are for recovering from fights, and suspense scenes are for figuring out and inventing what the heck is going on. So unlike an action scene, in a suspense scene, the threats are questions. All right. So questions are what you fight in a suspense scene. The GM will create a marker for each question, and the hero markers will be placed according to which what. All right. After the action interludes, there will be questions floating around. Stuff like, why did the Crimson Apes attack? Who was that mysterious figure? What was stolen during the attack? What's up with these strange runes? These questions become the focus of the suspense scene. Unlike the first scene, we don't necessarily all have to be together. Professor Bradbury might be back at the lab studying an alien crystal, while Rusty and Andrew go down to the industrial level to investigate a league at an anti-robot league bar. The GM will frame each question with a location and a brief description. All right. You do hits to the question until it's defeated, just like a threat during an action scene. When a question is defeated, it's answered definitively by the GM, the player who defeated it, or some combination. In other words, it's not just the GM, it's not just the player. It's like if you beat the question, you kind of get some say in what the answer is, right? And it's kind of a collaborative thing, like me and the player should work together. And other players can chime in as well. All right. If threats are spawned during the suspense scene, that's fine. They are going to come in the action scene to come because, yes, after a suspense scene comes another action scene. And by the way, this is where the rules of the game end. So actions, we start with that in media res cold open action scene. Then we do an interlude. Then we do a suspense scene, which generates the next sort of like, oh, and this is where we have to go kick ass. And then we go do another action scene. And then we do another interlude, another suspense, and another action. And I have found that typically when I play at a convention, I can do action, interlude, suspense, action, interlude, suspense, action. And that final action is like the act 3, the final showdown, right? And I can get that done in a tight 4 hours. And so we end up having 2 suspense scenes, 2 interlude scenes, 3 action scenes, including that first one and the big finale. And this has delivered again and again and again and again. It is a fantastic bit of game. So great stuff here. And, again, is it a complete game? No. But I did see that somebody mentioned there are like elements of Microscope. Well, Ben Robbins is listed in the excellent feedback from their thing. So Ben Robbins was definitely involved with that. It's a fun game. By the way, here's a bunch of episode titles to inspire you. And I've used this a million times, like when I'm trying to figure out like what our session should be. And again, I'll just, I usually just totally freehand it, but like, I'll be like, oh, the war nymphs of Venus, and I just use that to like create that opening scene. Right. I don't know if that looks like, but but these are real stories from like pulp magazines from like, the 50s. Ice City of the Gorgon. Right. You're like, okay, you're on Europa, because the idea of this is that like all the planets are habitable. Right. And then this page right here, this is the entire rules summary of the entire game. Everything that you need the players to know to play this game is all on this page. One page, the entire rules. Then there's another separate, the GM has one additional page, which gives you a list of those threat moves that your threats can make when the players roll danger. And then what is your job? Keep the fictional action at the forefront. Ask questions. What does the audience see on the screen right now? When something does something with the game system, something happens on the screen. Bring threats into play. Keep the game moving at a brisk pace. Judge if an action constitutes an attack. And that's it. And then you have all your character sheets. It's an incredibly fun game. We've had a lot of fun playing it over the years, and I am a big fan of Danger Patrol. We've had some truly, and of course, we always make it very memey, and it's, we don't take it super seriously, nor it's not supposed to be. I mean, it's taking place in like a 1930s rocket city on Mars, right? But it's fun, and it's collaborative, and it runs surprisingly well. And again, I've gotten a lot of mileage out of these laminated dry erase character sheets. Let's see if I have anything else in here. No, but I just have like, and by the way, if that's too complex for you, I don't know if you can still find this easily, but John made a pocket edition, which is literally just one page. There's no classes or roles. It's just one page. It's even more simple. He made a pocket edition, basically. It's like super, super simple. I don't know that I've ever really, I think I've played that before, but anyways, fun stuff, good stuff. Oh, what happened to our background? All right. Well, any thoughts, comments, questions on Danger Patrol? No? All right. All right. We've talked about this game, next game, very quickly before. And this game is the easiest one that we have on this entire list. If you go to itch.io, it's crazy how many variants of this game, how many hacks of this game have been made. This is Lasers and Feelings. Lasers and Feelings, basically, your character only has a number. That's the only stat you have. It's called the number. All right? 2 to 5. If it's higher, it means you're better at lasers, which is like technology, science, cold, precise action. And if it's low, it means you're better at feelings, your intuition, your diplomacy, your seduction, your wild, passionate action. All right? And, you choose by the way, Lasers and Feelings, if this came out, I don't know what year this came out. This came out in, I don't know, probably like 2013. Okay. So there you go. This came out in 2013. So this came out about 3 or 4 years after Danger Patrol. Notice out here, you're on an interstellar ship. You're part of the consortium. Look at this. Choose a style for your character. Choose a role for your character. Gee, where have we seen that before, right? Then you choose a cool space adventure name like Sparks McGee, and then you roll the dice. And what you do is you're either doing something, if you're using lasers, you want to roll under your number. And if you want to roll feelings, you have to roll over your number. So if our number was 5, then for us to do a lasers action, science, reasoning, cold hard intellect, because our number's 5, we have to roll a 1, 2, 3, or 4 on a d6. But because our number is 5, if we want to roll feelings, we have to roll over our number, which is a 5, which means we need to roll a 6. And by the way, when we roll, we take a d6 just to start with. We add a d6 if we're prepared, and we add another d6 if we are an expert. Then we count how many of our dice succeeded. If none of them succeeded, then it goes wrong, and we basically get a 6-. We basically get a, not only did it basically, things got worse, right? It's never nothing happens. It's always, you didn't succeed, and because of this, the situation has gotten worse, right? So yes, it's not good for our character, but it's interesting for us as storytellers. It's interesting for us as players of the game. It's interesting for us as audience members, because rather than having a stagnant, well, you failed your roll. Okay, nothing happens. Well, who's going next? Right? That's very unexpired. Anyways, if 1 die gets it, then you succeed at a cost. If 2 dice get it, well, then you succeed it and no problem. And if you get 3 numbers, you get a critical success. All right. Additionally, if you roll your number exactly, aka if your number is 3 and you roll a 3, then you get laser feelings, and you get to ask the GM a special question about what's going on here. This is very similar to discern realities or read a sitch from Apocalypse World, or discern realities from Dungeon World. All right. And if somebody wants to help you can add an additional die. And that's it. That's the whole game. That's it. So over here is a random adventure generator. So let's take a look here. We've got, I'm going to roll D6 here. All right. So space pirates want to steal the void crystals, which will start a war. So there we go. And by the way, the first thing that my brain jumps to is The Princess Bride, and I'm thinking of replacing Vizzini and Fezzik and Inigo with space pirates, and they are trying to steal the void crystals to start a war. But in actuality, they were hired by the prince of the kingdom, or the prince of the leader of the consortium, in order to start a war for political reasons, right? And then we'll just go from there. So we introduce a threat, we show evidence of its recent badness, and then we ask the players what they do. And that's it. That's the entire game in a nutshell. So lasers and feelings, if you go to itch.io, it's a crazy, let me bring it up here because it's worth looking at here. Sorry, just trying to search for this. All right, here we go. OBS. All right, so these are all the games on itch.io that that use basically lasers and feelings as their core engine, right? So obviously you start with lasers and feelings, and then there is, badass anthropomorphic battle beast, aka Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Guns and Sharks, Phantom Thieves, Witches and Aliens, Lasers and Emotions, Yin Yang Panda, Punks in the Fever Pitch, Changelings, The Magic and the Fury, Create and Chaos, Rise of the Apes, Chaos Theory, Gentlemen and Pirates, Final Girl Academy, Mystery Solving Do Gang, Dungeon Breaker, Storytelling, Scientists and Sorcerers, Sturm und Drang, Love and Mutants, Parlay and Plunder, Grey Cloaks, Pilots and Passengers, Super Inhuman, Elves or Not, Werewolf Project Manager, Sales and Legends, Brick Built, Misfortune, Claws and Effect, Smashin' Brothers, Science and Sabotage, Soul Survivor, Comedy Tragedy, Duty Despair, Slice and Dice, Horses Are Magic. So you could just, it literally keeps going. It's crazy how many games, this is just on itch.io, right? That of people who have taken this game and just hacked it to make their own version. But that's it. So It's a very, 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 very simple idea, but very, very, very compelling, right? And so people have taken on, sort of stuck to it. Beowulf says, wait, go back, go back, go back. Love and mutants. Here we go. Who will win in a fight for survival against mutated insects, harsh surroundings, and other survivors? Love or mutants? It's set in a movie-inspired world where a chemical havoc caused all cold-blooded animals to mutate and destroy most of human civilization. You play as a group of survivors in this harsh world, testing your skills and teamwork. He says boo next. Yeah, it's actual mutant. When you hear the word mutant or mutated, most people don't think, oh, I got cool superpowers. Anyways, so Lasers and Feelings is probably the easiest and simplest game. I tend to bust this game out only when I'm dealing with people who really have no proclivity for wanting. I tend to use Lasers and Feelings more for groups that actually have some RPG experience, because I do feel like it being so simple actually makes it kind of more complex in a weird way. And if I only have a couple hours or something, if I'm really doubtful about how long I have, I'll just go with Lasers and Feelings. Just because this Oracle to create a space adventure is also just really nice to have in your back pocket. All right. Any questions about Lasers and Feelings? I knew that one would be quick because it literally is only one page. By the way, yes, to answer your question, there is definitely a D&D versions of this. I think it's called Swords and Magic, I think. And it works very well with those one-page dungeons that I was talking about before. So if you want a one-page dungeon, right, to match up with your, if you want your one-page dungeon to match up with your one-page rule set, you can go with, I think it's called Swords and Magic. It might be called Might and Magic, but it's the same basic idea. Instead of Lasers and Feelings, it's Might and Magic. I'm guessing I think Dungeons and Dragons might have a bit of a copyright there, Patrick, but good point. So Lasers and Feelings is an all-time great. And again, clearly huge inspo for a whole, generation of people who've been making games. All right. The last one that we'll probably get to talk to here is Lady Blackbird. All right. So Lady Blackbird is, for me, I will freely admit this. I did not learn about the story of yesterday and Clinton R. Nixon from their work. I learned about it from Lady Blackbird, and I learned about keys from Lady Blackbird. Now, this game's whole XP system works in this idea called keys, which is very much taken from Clinton R. Nixon's work. But you can see here that the influences from John Harper here, it's a who's list. Clinton Nixon, Luke Crane, James West, Vincent Baker, right? Jason Morningstar, Fred Hicks, Rob Donahue, Joss Whedon. And that these are more of like people that inspired him. Joss Whedon, George Lucas, Hayao Miyazaki, and Reiko Kodama. So Lady Blackbird is, for the lack of better explanation, it's Firefly, but magic punk instead of sci-fi. And you're, that episode of Firefly where the crew gets captured by the what are they called? The Alliance, right? The Alliance cruiser captures the Firefly, right? And they're like looking for River or whatever. If you remember that episode, it's basically that, because the game starts with the same premise every time. All right. So Lady Blackbird is on the run from an arranged marriage to Count Carlo. She has hired a smuggler skyship, the Owl, to take her from her palace on the imperial world of Elysium to the far reaches of the Remnants, so she could be with her once secret lover, the pirate king Uriah Flint. However, just before reaching the halfway point of haven, the Owl was pursued and captured by the imperial cruiser Hand of Sorrow under charges of flying a false flag. Even now, Lady Blackbird, her bodyguard, and the crew of the Owl are detained in the brig. while the commander of the cruiser, Captain Hollis, runs the smuggler ship's registry over the wireless. It's only a matter of time before they discover the outstanding warrants and learn that the Owl is owned by none other than the infamous outcast Cyrus Vance. How will Lady Blackbird and the others escape the hand of sorrow? What dangers lie in their path? Will they be able to find the secret lair of the Pirate King? And if they do, will Uriah Flint accept Lady Blackbird as his bride? By the time they get there, will she even want him to? And so this is the Wild Blue, shattered worlds circling a dimming star. Basically, the idea is like it's space, but you can like sail your ship through it and you can like breathe it. There's like somehow there's air out there. Again, it's really kind of like a weird fantasy, sci-fi, magic punk kind of spell jammery kind of vibe. All right. So to be clear, we're heading from the Imperial capital world of Elysium. We were heading to the Remnants, which is where the Pirate King lies, and we were ambushed somewhere near Haven by the Imperial Dreadnought. All right. And, we get this like one-page description here. Here we go. The worlds of the Wild Blue float in a sky of breathable gases circling a small cold star. Scholars believe that the star is made from pure essence, the strange energy that sorcerers channel for their magic. This solar system is much smaller than you might think, and it takes about 6 weeks to cross from one side to the other on a standard skyship. Right? Then we got some information about a couple of the worlds. We get a couple names, because those are always useful to have if we need to make up names. And then that's it. That's the entire background of the story, of the game, of everything that you need to know. It's everything that the players know. It's everything that the GM knows, right? You have that intro. You have this little map and little description. And then we get into the character sheets. All right. So, and on your character sheet is also the rules. All right. So this is the primary character, if you will, which is Natasha Siri, a.k.a. the Lady Blackbird, an imperial noble in disguise escaping an arranged marriage so she can be with her lover. So on the left, we can see her traits, and you can see that each trait has some sub-traits. So her imperial noble trait gives her etiquette, dance, educated, history, science, wealth, connections, House Blackbird. Some of them are in brackets. These are basically things that say, you don't have this yet, but you could gain it. So she is a master sorcerer, spellcasting, channeling, storm blood, wind, lightning. All right. So tags in brackets are qualities you don't have yet. You can buy them with advances. See the rules under keys. All right. Then, so that's it. That's the only thing we have. Okay. For what our character can do. And then the other half of our character sheet are our keys and our secrets. So we have 3 keys, and basically keys are a way for you to earn experience points by doing the thing that they want you to do. And this is very much designed to be a one-shot. So you are designed to earn experience points throughout the course of the one-shot and then spend those experience points to acquire new abilities or do things in the course of the game. So the interesting thing about keys is all keys have what's called a buy-off. And a buy-off basically is a way to sort of like turn the key on its head, right? And you actually lose the key. But when you do it, you get a big surge or a big burst of XP. So as an example, Key of the Paragon. As a noble, you're a cut above the common man. Hit your key, which basically means mark experience points, when you demonstrate your superiority or when your noble traits are used to overcome a problem, right? So basically, this Key of the Paragon lets us keep earning 1 experience point every time we sort of demonstrate our superiority or when our noble traits, come into play. However, we can buy this key off and we can disown our noble heritage. And when we do that, we lose the Key of the Paragon. In fact, I don't think we can ever gain it again. But when we buy it off, I think we get 7 XP all at once. And because this is a one-shot, you're kind of encouraged to a certain extent to buy off some of your keys. Not all of them, not necessarily. But the idea here is that, if Lady Blackbird in the course of this adventure, maybe she falls in love, which this happens a lot. She falls in love with the Nathan Reynolds character, right? The the Malcolm Reynolds character, sorry, Nathan Fillion, aka Malcolm Reynolds character. And you know, he's like, they'll never stop hunting you. You're a noble of the imperial world. And she's like, I'll go into hiding. I'll forsake my, you know, my heritage. I'll give up my, you know, my noble title so that we could be together. Right. And that's like me going like, okay, you know, that's me earning, you know, my noble heritage. All right. So she also has the key of the mission, which is, you know, I must escape the Empire and rendezvous with my once secret lover, the Pirate King Uriah Flint. Hit your key whenever you take action to complete the mission, or we could give up on our mission and buy it off. All right. And then there's the key of the imposter. You are in disguise, passing yourself off as a commoner. Hit your key whenever you perform well enough to fool someone with your disguise, or we can reveal our true identity to someone we have previously fooled. That gives us 7 XP. And then we have 2 secrets, which give us kind of special abilities. So as long as we can speak, we can channel our magic power, and we get the Master Sorcerer trait and the Stormblood tag, which we have here. And then we also have Secret of Inner Focus. Once per session, we can re-roll a failure. And then at the bottom, we have our hit points, which are just conditions. We could be injured, dead, tired, angry, lost, hunted, or trapped. Okay, here's what we do. So someone asked, why do we need experience points? I think it was Beowulf. Why do we care about XP in one shot? Well, easy. Whenever you hit a key, you can do one of 2 things. You can take an experience point, or you can add a die to your pool up to its max of 10. If you go into danger because of your key, you get 2 XP or 2 pool dice, or 1 XP and 1 pool dice. Once you have accumulated 5 XP, you can earn an advance, and you can spend it on the following. You can add a new trait. You can, based on something that came into play during the game. You can add a tag to one of your traits. You can add a new key, or you can learn a secret. You can hold on to advances if you want and spend them at any time, even in the middle of a battle. Each key has a buy-off. If the buy-off condition occurs, you have the option of removing the key and earning 2 advances at once. So that's actually 10 XP, basically, at once. So it's very common for characters to earn, you know, 15, 20 XP or whatever in the course of a session. You're marking them pretty fast and furious. And you can constantly be learning secrets, adding new keys, adding traits, and adding tags. So there's room here at the bottom for you to add new traits and new tags as your character sort of progresses through the game. So what is the game? Well, we have a pool of dice that we actually keep in front of our character sheet. All right. So we start with 7 dice in our pool, 7 D6. They're just D6s, okay? When you try to overcome an obstacle, roll dice. Start with 1 die. So we have 7 dice in our pool. Ignore that for a second. So we take 1 die because we're starting. If we add an additional die if we have a trait that's going to help us from our character sheet, right? One of our traits helps us. That adds an additional die to our pool. If that trait has any tags that apply, add another die for each tag. So, for example, if we were involved, if we were doing a running sword fighting, swashbuckling scene, our character might say, okay, well, we start with 1d6. I'm athletic. That's 2. I'm fencing with my rapier, right? It's a bunch of duels. I'm going to add 4 bonus dice. So I have 5d6. Okay. Then we can add any number of dice from our personal pool of dice. So once we've built our pool of 3 or of 1 to 4 dice, we can then contribute from our personal pool. Thank you, Duncan.
Duncan DT tipped $10. Thanks for showing off more, John Harper. Gonna have to catch the VOD later, but Blades changed how I run RPGs, so I'm very excited.
Duncan, Blades changed the way I play RPGs and the way I think about RPGs as well. And quite frankly, some of these games were actually my first introduction to John Harper, and they really started to this and the PBTA framework really started to, I was playing a lot of, I 10 years of D&D 3rd edition and 4th edition, and 10 years before that of GURPS and Earth Dawn and D&D 2nd edition. So, these really did kind of change everything up. Anyways. So we can add any number of dice from our personal pool. And then we roll that big pool of dice. Every die that's a 4 or higher is a hit. if we need hits equal to the difficulty level to pass. So this is very similar to Torchbearer, to Burning Wheel, right? In Burning Wheel, you roll a pool of D6s, 4s, 5s, and 6s are successes. And then the difficulty has a rating, an obstacle, and you have to roll that many successes. So 2 is easy, 3 is difficult, 4 is challenging. If you pass, you discard all the dice you rolled, including any pool dice you used. So you discard your dice and you added all of your, personal, let's say I added 3 from my personal pool. Well, those get discarded too. But if you don't pass and we don't achieve our goal, we get to keep all the pool dice that we rolled and we get to add an additional die to our pool. But the GM will escalate the situation in some way and you might be able to try again. So if we added 3 of our own dice from our personal pool and we failed the roll, not only do we get those 3 dice back, we actually get a 4th die. So our pool grows a little bit. So when you fail, basically you get the dice that you spent from your personal pool back and you get a bonus die. So it's kind of a nice little thing of failing, not feeling too bad. When events warrant, especially when you fail a roll, the GM may impose a condition on your character. Injured, dead, tired, angry, lost, hunted, or trapped. When you take a condition, mark its box. Note, the dead condition just means presumed dead, unless you say otherwise. I like this rule a lot, because remember, you have that personal pool of dice. If your character is in position to help another character, you can give them a pool from your dice. Say what you do to help. If the roll fails, you get your pool die back. If it succeeds, then the die that you loaned them is lost. We talked about keys. This is how you earn experience points. But you can also, when you hit a key, you can either take experience points or you can add a die to your pool to keep your pool dice up so you can keep rolling more dice. Additionally, there is something called the refresh. You can refresh your pool, basically have a reset back to 7 dice by having a refreshment scene with another character. You can also remove a condition or regain the use of a secret depending on the details of the scene. So remember how this says once per session you can re-roll a failure when doing sorcery? That's by default. If we have a refresh scene, we can get that back. But we have to describe how that occurs and why that occurs. The key thing of a refresh scene is it has to be with another character. It's a good time to ask questions in character so the other players can show off aspects of their PCs. Refreshment scenes can even be flashbacks. So basically, it's like if you have like that kind of quiet interlude scene. That's kind of how you re-get your dice back. Otherwise, your dice pools will keep coming from hitting your keys, and you can also earn experience points to earn new traits and new tags. And so this is Natasha Siri, the Lady Blackbird. She's the main character. She's basically trying, in theory, she was trying to get, flee from her arranged marriage so she could go re-meet up with her, the pirate king who was once her secret lover. But Naomi Bishop is her personal bodyguard, who was a former pit fighter who she saved from slavery. Cyrus Vance is sort of the Malcolm Reynolds. He is the captain smuggler of the Owl, which is your sky ship, and he's basically kind of your Han Solo, Malcolm Reynolds character. He's a scoundrel with maybe a heart of gold. Maybe Lady Blackbird falls in love with him. Maybe Lady Blackbird hates her. Maybe Naomi Bishop falls, or maybe they don't. There's an element of romance, but it doesn't have to be there. Kale Arkham is the first mate of the Owl, also sort of the chief engineer and a petty sorcerer. And Snargle is the goblin sky sailor and the pilot of the Owl. And the goblin is this kind of weird thing. That's it. There's only 5 characters. This is the Owl. This is your old but reliable sky ship outfitted for smuggling. Again, this is the magic punk version of the Serenity meets the Millennium Falcon. Here's the size comparison of the Hand of Sorrow, the Imperial battleship, which took us prisoner. Think, when the Death Star, right, tractor beams the Millennium Falcon. It's very much in that vein. And our ship can take some conditions as well. Needs fuel, needs supplies, busted and leaking, slowed and crippled. And then there's like a 1 page on running the game, listen and ask questions, don't plan, say yes, look for the obstacles, yada, yada, yada. Here's some examples of stuff that might come up and giving you obstacle numbers if, if a sky squid attacks, if we want to escape from the tentacles, maybe it's 5. If we want to attack the squid, it could be 3. If we want to maneuver in squid ink, it could be a 4. And then if our characters, want to acquire some new traits, new tags through their experience points, here's some ideas that they could explore, or they could just make anything up. This is all just a, example. And that's it. That's the whole game. That's Lady Blackbird. And again, every character sheet has the rules written on it, and it's pretty cool. Why can't it just be real seas and real ships with sails? Well, in this case, I don't think any of this would work in an actual boat, but it's fundamentally fine. This is actually a situation where I actually think this is really cool. I actually really like this kind of magic punk, steampunk kind of spaceship. But that's because for me, this isn't about sailing. I'm very much thinking of this as Millennium Falcon. I'm thinking of this as like the Serenity. So this is Lady Blackbird, and this has been some really good game. Yeah, I've heard really good things about it, but never had a table. I have run this 5 or 6 times in my life, and it's always really interesting to see what directions characters go in. And some people, turn it basically into a fight against the Empire and try to blow up the Imperial ship. Okay, Beowulf. I want sail ships or spaceships. I hate steampunk and Magitech. I like steampunk and I like Magitech. Yeah. So that makes sense. I know I'm boring. But again, this game system, in theory, you could use this game system to do anything, but it is really designed for this thing to do. There's not even character creation rules. I think there may be something that somebody created to create more characters, but it's very Firefly-esque. It's very, help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi, you're my only hope. We hire the smuggler to get the message plants to the Death Star. You know what I mean? It's very Star Wars Firefly-esque. And again, John mentions that Joss Whedon and George Lucas were 2 of his quote unquote influences, right? I don't know how Miyazaki came in here, but those of you who are much more proficient with Miyazaki may understand some of the things there a little bit. Derek, I will completely agree with you that the punk component of most things that are punk has been completely removed, and it's really just all aesthetics. I will completely agree with you on that. To be fair, this is kind of about sticking it to the man and sticking it to the imperial bureaucracy and the imperial hegemony, right? She's running from her arranged marriage from the great capital of the empire, home to the great noble houses. Elysium is rich and decadent, attended by servants, slaves, and the elite bodyguards of the nobility, right? And you're fleeing from it, and the empire is trying to track you down and force you into servitude and subjitude, so there's kind of a punk aspect to it. Yeah. John gets it. Yeah. I can't Elia says, I can't hate Magitech because I played Final Fantasy VI and Final Fantasy VII. And my answer is exactly the same, especially Final Fantasy VI. I can't hate Magitech because I love Final Fantasy VI and I love Final Fantasy VII. So I too am legally obligated to like it. Now, while I love, and one could argue that like most even Final Fantasy IV, right, with the airships and it has tanks. It's still pretty Magitech-y when you really think about it. Not quite to the design, to the level that Final Fantasy VI did, with the literal Magitech soldiers and Magitech suits. So Lady Blackbird is another great one. This one obviously has a couple more pages than the others, but most of them are just pre-written character sheets. And again, I've seen some really fun things. You can only play up to 5 characters because that's all that's available to you. I would say minimum is 3, ideally, but it really works well with 4 or 5. It's cool when you can get the whole crew, when you can get Lady Blackbird, her bodyguard, the Han Solo character, the sort of scrappy first mate, petty sorcerer, engineer character, and then Snargle, the pilot goblin. It's pretty cool, and you get some nice bouncing off of each other and some other cool stuff about that nature. So yeah. Last thing that I'll quickly touch on because it's almost time here, just real quick. This is called Ghost Lines, and this is basically the game that precursed Blades in the Dark. For those of you who don't know, the idea of Blades in the Dark is that there is this haunted, destroyed world with these cities that are surrounded by lightning fields to keep out the dead ghosts. Well, the idea is that there are these trains that run between the cities and run through the ghost lands. Okay. And the people who protect these trains while they cross through the Deathlands are called railjacks. And this initial version of the game of Blades in the Dark, basically you are those railjacks. You are the people who sort of guard these trains that are crossing these Deathlands from ghosts and from supernatural horrors and from demons. And Ghost Lines is a game that I only played once, to be completely admittedly to you. But because Blades came out pretty quickly in my experience after this. So, but a lot of the, elements of Blades in the Dark were kind of worked out here. And it's obviously its own game and it's a little bit different, but at the same time, it is, very much, it inspired. You can see a lot of the stuff that sort of grew into Blades in the Dark from Ghost Lines, and including, the world of Duskfall and the shattered lands, or whatever it's called, Shattered Empire, and the whole idea of the Ghost Lines, and this whole, what is the Ghost Lines? It's, the Imperium of the Shattered Isles of the Cataclysm, the Immortal Emperor. Each city of the Imperium is encircled by crackling lightning towers to create an electrical shell that the spirits cannot penetrate. By law, all corpses are incinerated with lightning oil to destroy the spirit essence within, yada, yada, yada. So yeah, this is very much, but again, it's a very short, there's only one character sheet and then just like one page for rules and another page for some random tables, to do some rumors or leads, some patrons and some city events. It's pretty sweet. It's pretty cool. And it definitely shows the sort of, evolution of that. And by the way, if we want to know specifically where John was pulling from when he was doing even before this, we have Apocalypse World, obviously by Vincent Baker, Dishonored, which everybody knows from Arcane Studios, Ghostbusters, the movie, Final Fantasy, The Spirits Within, which makes a lot of sense when you think about Final Fantasy, The Spirits Beneath, the Planarch Codex, which is a very old PBTA game, or PBTA setting kind of thing, and Micro Traveler by C. Bennett. And all these things are released under Creative Commons licenses, and for the most part, you can kind of make your own thing about it, and blah, 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 blah. So that is the Ghost Lines. And that's that. Now, for Lady Blackbird, that whole thing with the keys, so let me see if I can find it. Here we go. Yeah. So this is, the game that John was really inspired by to create. This is called The Shadow of Yesterday. And this game came out in 2004. So this was one of the very early, it won Best Free Game of the Year at 2004 Indie RPG Awards and was named the 2004 Indie RPG Game of the Year. So this is a very early version of this idea of this game. So if you kind of want to really look back in time at like where the indie state was back in the early 2000s, definitely go look at The Shadow of Yesterday, because that's kind of what really inspired, the whole XP and the key system, and that idea of playing to this idea of what I call, right, mechanical role playing, right? This idea that we can structure a game that the rewards are designed not for playing the fiction, right, but for playing your character. And that by leaning into these defined tropes, you create a incentive pattern for players to engage with the game and to be rewarded thusly. I think that's I think that idea kind of revolutionized the gaming space. That and the idea of these not just binary success fail, right? That you have this idea of failure forward or success, but with a complication. I think those two ideas, combined with this idea of narrative incentives for your character that would create mechanical rewards, tying the mechanics of the game into the role playing, really, to my mind, is what kind of defined the indie space for the better part of a long, 10 plus years. I would still say it's kind of there, but it's kind of hard to say what the state of the indie space is. Anyways, that's 5 games from John Harper, available at his website on his itch.io or through his website. They're free, or pay what you want, throw them a couple bucks. They're fun to have, they're fun to read, they're short to read. Like I said, I have them in my con bug out bag, ready to go whenever I never go to a con without these. And I usually bring those, and I bring Fiasco, and I usually bring BX D&D and Keep on the Borderlands. And of course, if you played with me, you know that I've got my laminated pre-made character tents that everybody can use. So you can see who your character is, who your GM is, what your 6 ability scores are, and then everybody else gets to see what your character's name is and what your player's name is, and what your preferred pronouns are. And, then we just sit down and we get to play. And, whether it's World of Dungeons or whether it's BX D&D or whether it's, Cosmic Patrol, it's just, fun, quick, let's get into the answer. And I'm not looking, the problem I have, and I see this from I've heard this from a lot of people. I've heard this from my own patrons, where, I just realized I was on the wrong screen. I look terrible. I've heard this from my own patrons. A lot of people will go to a con. They'll go to a con and they will sign up to play in a game that I consider to be fairly complex, with a lot of complexity or complication, a game with a lot of depth, a game with a lot of moving parts. And they are going to this one-shot session where you're going to have 5 people who know nothing about the rules, being run by a GM who themselves may not really know the rules all that well. Some of these volunteers are not always the best. I mean, God bless them. They're doing the good work. But a lot of people, I'm just telling it like it is. Okay. A lot of people sign up to volunteer GM for these companies because these companies are pretty desperate to get volunteers, and they just throw like free badges or like subsidized rooms at them. And a lot of people really don't want to pay for the rooms at these cons, or they don't want to pay for the badges. And I get it. That can add up to a couple $100, maybe even $500 or $600 or $700 or $800, depending on where you're at. And so a lot of people, I think, sign up to volunteer GM, and I don't think they're very good. Some are excellent, but for the most part, they're bad. And, and they may not know the system well enough to be able to teach it like this. And the people that are signing up to play these games are doing it because they're like, I basically want to try before I buy, right? I want to evaluate the game. So they sit down with a table full of newbies, just like them, who don't know the game system at all, who are also here just to try it out. Or maybe they don't barely care. You have a GM who may or may not really understand the game system, who is only there because they wanted the free badge and the free room. And you have a limited couple hours to do it. And then people come away from that game and they say, I played, Modifius's Dune D20. I played Star Trek Adventures. I played Pathfinder 2. And I'm like, no, you didn't. No, you didn't. Those games, there's too much nuance there. There's too much complexity there. And while I think that can be maybe an okay sniff test, I think that a lot of those, and nowadays these companies, man, they run these like, it's like a chop shop. It's like a factory floor, man. They just try to run people through demos. And I just think it's a shitty experience. And I think it gives a terrible impression of your game. And I actually think game companies are very disserviced by doing this. I don't like one-shots for these type of game systems because I think that you're doing the game a disservice and you're not going to be able to properly appreciate what the game can do. That is why games like Danger Patrol or Lady Blackbird are so appealing to me, because players can get their mind and their head wrapped around the entire game very quickly, very easily. And, you're not there to try it before you buy it. You're not there to see if the mechanics hum. You're there to create an experience. You're there to create a moment with potentially random strangers that is a fun experience, that you created this fun story with this group of random strangers. And that is a awesome experience at a convention. And if you've ever played at some good indie games on demand tables, you know that what you walk away from is, I mean, these games, mechanically, you might not walk away with anything because there's not really anything there to walk away from. But what you walk away from is something very unique, which is the experience. And some of my favorite gaming experiences have happened with random strangers at random con games. And it was done using these relatively fairly simple game systems because the game system got out of the way. I don't think conventions are the time or the place to be engaging in these complex games as a demo. I just don't think it works. And I think that, you know, I'd much rather bust out one of, you know, these type of games, you know? Oh yeah. I mean, the bigger the game gets, the worse it is. I mean, I completely agree with that. You know, I mean, I've, you know, now that I have the Patreon and I've got a bunch of patrons who go to these conventions, and I hear all, you know, I just hear the horror stories, you know, of just, yeah, you know, it was whatever, it was okay. You know, I think the GM barely knew how to play, you know, like it was like, it's just really a bad experience. And part of it is, even if the GM really does know what they're doing, you know, trying to teach someone a complex game and make them understand some of the subtleties and nuances of that game in one session is, I think, flawed. And one of the things I really respect about Torchbearer is Luke Crane and Thor Olvesson said, they're like, you're not going to get this game in one session. Kind of don't bother playing it for one session. You know, they're like, play it for 9 to 12 sessions. 9 to 12 sessions will really let you sink your teeth in, experience the game, the cycles of play, the sort of the long-term progression, and really understand how the game comes together and coalesces. If after 9 to 12 sessions you say, I'm good, I don't like the game, then that's totally fair. You played the game. But if you sit down and play Torchbearer for a one-shot session, having never read the rules before until right now, where they're being taught to you while you're playing, then the game is, you know, they're saying, you didn't play our game. You didn't play our game. You know, Eric, I completely agree with you. That's my experience as well. And I kind of said this at the beginning of the stream, where I said that World of Dungeons is, for me, like, along with Fate Accelerated Edition, the sort of best go-to for people who have never played an RPG before. And I find that they just pick it up so easily. But it's the experienced players who have a hard time with understanding that, you know, because I think it's because new players, they come to the game because they want to experience an exciting story, and they want to experience an exciting narrative, and they can see what is happening in that respect. Whereas experienced players, especially experienced trad players, come to the game with, how does this game model reality? And when a game doesn't do that, especially these indie games, it tends to, you know, blow up their world, because to them, a game is really just a way of simulating a fictional reality. And I have sort of moved more or less beyond that. I mean, sometimes it's still fun, but, you know, for the most part, I'm more interested in game mechanics that are trying to do something other than just simulate a, you know, fictional reality. I don't play role-playing games because they're fun, right? I play role-playing games because the stories and the moments and the experiences that they create are fun. And so I like games that have sort of put that idea forward as sort of their driving force. And a lot of Harper games do that. It's true. That's also true. But I mean, but I see people's soul get, you know, new players' soul get killed when, you know, you sit down and you say, hey, I want to play a role-playing game. People are like, oh, I've always heard about role-playing games. You know, I've heard about D&D, and I've heard about, like, all these really cool games. And you're like, yeah. All right. Okay. So this is the first rule book. Okay. We got a couple of these. So, you know, you don't have to read all of this, but you probably really do want to read at least most of it. Now, there's only a couple thousand spells, but the good news is, because you want to be a wizard, right? Like, because you like Harry Potter. The good news is you only have to there's only like 500 for you. So really, it's pretty great. Now, you don't need to know what every class does, but it would be helpful if you did. And there's also all of these rules. Also, you're going to need to know about combat. Also, if you actually want to be like, not just some lame player, but actually want to be a real role player, you'll also learn all about the world and the gods and and you'll make a character with personality and who is tied to the world and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, these are new players and you're just, their spirit blood is on your hands. You've killed their spirit. And I try to nurture that, it's a very rough onboarding experience, very rough onboarding experience. The opposite, is kind of true. I've seen this happen a lot with the old school games. Okay. OSR games, blah, DCC, funnel, fuck yeah, blah, workboard, kill them all, blah, right? BX is the same way. You make a character, you're like, oh, cool, I get to make a character, and then your character dies. Ha ha. Now, like, as old school people who played the game for all these years, like, we're kind of like, oh, that's funny, And there was a time and a place, in the 80s when entertainment wasn't literally, when you didn't literally have the unlimited power of the universe in your palm of your hand. That's the thing you have to realize. Okay, it's 1982. You're at your friend's basement. I'm being born. You're at your friend's basement and you're playing BX D&D, right? And you're like, oh, this is cool. I'm excited to be here. They have pizza. They've got Mountain Dew and Pepsi, Coca-Cola. They've got potato chips. The mom ordered a pizza, and we're in the basement of my buddy's house, and we're playing D&D. And I'm like, I've never played before, and I'm excited to be here. And then my character dies, and everybody's like, ha 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 ha, And then it's like, oh, don't worry, we'll get you in on the next thing. And it's like, cool, man, I'm just excited to be here. This is such a cool experience, man. It's 2024, right? People won't die. Their character will be very much alive. And they'll still be distracted by their phone, right? Like their character's very much in the story and they're just like, playing they're playing Monopoly Go or whatever, or watching TikTok. So now when you make a character and then your character dies and it's like, oh, don't worry, we'll get you in on the next scene. It's like, you've lost them already. You've lost them. They're going to be on your phone. They're going to be on your thing. And it's just going to be, so I think that the old school games suffer from that as well. Because the last thing that you want to do when a person is sitting down to play a game for the first time and you're really trying to experience what the game is like, and then you go, cool, your experience is, you rolled badly, and so now you don't get to play for, 15 minutes, 30 minutes, an hour, I don't know, however long it takes. Horrible. That's just a horrible experience. I don't blame anybody for having that experience and then saying, oh yeah, I tried D&D once and it was terrible and I never played again. That is rough, Patrick. That is a rough one. I wonder how different my experience would have been if I had started with Dungeon World instead of 3.5. I don't know. In fact, Brave Flocks, when I first started running Dungeon World, I had been playing D&D for a long time. And growing up, I introduced many friends to it and friends of friends and, cousins and my sister, some of my sister's friends. And I didn't notice it at the time because I was, I didn't have anything to compare it to. But one of the most interesting things that I've noticed about Dungeon World was when we used to teach people how to play D&D who had never played RPGs before. An RPG experience was very not well known. I didn't recognize it when it was happening. I didn't recognize it until afterwards when I started playing Dungeon World. A combat would happen or something. And I would describe, the orc coming forward to, with his war club raised above his head and he's bloodlust in his eyes and he's barreling down on you. And instinctively, naturally, because the game feels like it's a back and forth. It feels like it's a conversation. It feels like I should be describing what my character is doing because that's what the game is about, right? I'm role playing. All the time when growing up in the 90s and in the early 2000s, I would teach people D&D and they would go, I leap out of the way, and they're looking to see what die they roll. And I would always have to explain to them, no, you don't do that. I just attack your armor class. And they're like, okay, well, what can I dodge? And it's like, well, you have this dexterity modifier that goes into your armor class. It sort of represents what your armor class is. And now, then, when I was like, in 2010, when I started playing Dungeon World and started teaching people Dungeon World who had never really played RPGs before, it was a very different experience, right? Because I would describe, it's a conversation. I describe the orc, he's barreling down, right? I am showing signs of an approaching threat. What do you do? And the player would say, well, I raise my shield and I block his club. And I go, great, you make a roll. And they would be like, yes, of course I do. Of course I'm doing this thing. And it was at that moment that I realized, wow, that is way more intuitive to the way that people think these games should work rather than the way that they do work. And it feels more empowering and it feels more natural and it flows better off of it. And it's just the way that people kind of, I think, instinctively, intuitively have a feeling for how the game should work. And it doesn't, if with standard D20. And I never realized the friction that was causing, in the 90s and the early 2000s until I started teaching people World of Dungeons, Dungeon World, or whatever. And they were just like, okay, yeah, I'm gonna dive behind this boulder. Great, cool. Make your dexterity roll. Oh yeah, awesome, great. It makes a lot more sense to them. If your approach to TTRPGs is expecting a cinematic narrative experience, you should not play D&D. You should play PBTA. And what's interesting about that statement is there's a couple of qualifications, which is number one, if D&D isn't cinematic and narrative, then what is it? And what is it producing if it's not cinematic narrative? And it also, if PBTA is pro cinematic and pro narrative, is that to say that D&D is anti cinematic and anti narrative? It's kind of an interesting thought process. It's like, okay, well, if it's bad at that, then what is it good at? Meanwhile, Critical Role has 8 players in a 5e game, putting bad. I don't like playing with 5 people. If I could be completely honest with you, I don't even like 5 people. I love 3. I love 4. 3 and 4. 2's fun too, but 3 and 4 for me, that's the sweet spot. Yeah. Too many people. Damien says, I'm reluctant to even run Shadowrun with veterans. Well, trial by fire, I guess, for Patrick's wife. Let's see here. Beowulf says, I don't need to be in the spotlight or be rolling dice in order to be playing the game. Well, yeah, you do. But because I am happy to watch others have their scenes, which is fine. But to be fair, you're there to play the game. The game is rolling the dice and being in the spotlight and taking actions. I mean, you could say that you're fine doing that, but no, that's not playing the game. There's been several sessions where I've written myself out of a session entirely. What is wrong with you? Is there so little going on in your life, Beowulf, that you're okay with this? What is wrong with you? And I could just watch the rest of the group play for 3 hours. You know what? God bless, sir. That sounds horrible to me. That sounds so boring. That sounds unbelievably boring. But I also don't like watching other people play actual plays because I'm just like, oh man, I want to be in there. I want to be creating the story. I want to be, taxing my brain and having to come up with creative thought processes. I want to be the one that's under the pressure and getting that creative high that comes from, that idea that you said, and then I bounced off of her and she gave it back to me and I added my spin to it and the GM took it and turned it into it. See, yeah, I like watching APs. Yeah. All right. Well, there you go. It's very interesting. No, I want to have my finger on the pulse, man. That's one of the reasons I don't like being a player. I don't have enough control. GMs, I have a lot of control, let me in there. That's what I want. I want to be creating, I don't want to be passive. I want to be active. I don't want to be reactionary. I want to be proactive. What's fun about D&D these days? The build. Playing sucks. I mean, we talk about people who don't play Pathfinder. They play Path Builder, which is the web app for making a character. And I do think that for a lot of people, the reason that they play the game of Pathfinder is because that's what they have to do in order to get these levels to make their character build complete. Like You know what I mean? Like what the actual story that's created, the process of getting there is maybe not necessarily not important to them, but it's secondary or it's tertiary to them, to the actual mechanic of, you know, number go burr, and I got that new feat, and now I've got this new ability turned on, and you know, my character concept is congealing mechanically. I'd be more willing to play with a bigger table if I could help more of my friends get the truckload of money delivery. Yeah. Yeah, well, tables are a problem too. I mean, I'm a stickler for that. I mean, it's less of a problem when you're not playing with a battle mat, but I hate the way that most tables are designed. In fact, I built a table for somebody, a gamer he was getting into D&D, and he got my name from the owner of the game store, Dirt, from our Root campaign. And he was like, "Hey, I want you to make a gaming table." And I thought he meant like a, you know, gaming table with the removable lid, and he said, no, I just want like a table that's good for playing role-playing games at. And I was like, that's an awesome idea. So I went and designed a table. It's just a normal table, you know, 4 legs, 4 rails, you know, four aprons, 4 legs, and a top, you know, with a couple cross supports. But the dimensions of the table are not any dimensions that you would ever see in a normal game. It was literally designed around the idea of having a battle mat in the area in the middle that everybody could reach, with a space for the game master and enough room for your character sheet and your books. But the bigger and longer a table gets, inherently the further more people are away from the action, so to speak, and that can be kind of problematic. So, but when you have like 1 GM and 4 players, you know, that's awesome. I mean, it wasn't necessarily that practical, but we built a pentagon table that was table number 2 for the studio, right? It was a pentagon table with really wide ledges, so everybody had room for their character sheets and their dice and their books, and then the center was slightly depressed where we could build like Dwarven Forge and put down battle mats. But it was a pentagon, so it's like it was kind of like a circle, but you still had your side, and then at the corner of every pentagon was a cup holder. That was actually probably one of my favorite tables that I've ever built, even though it was just built for the studio. It wasn't even really built to be nice. But Derek says, "I don't hate D&D. I never hated D&D, but I will steer players to games I know they'll enjoy." I mean, I just my love of D&D comes from nostalgia more than anything else, right? And that's fine. That's a powerful force. It's absolutely a powerful force. But for like new players, yeah, I agree. I don't necessarily know what niche it fills that other games don't feel better. The only reason people think D&D is a narrative storage game is because the GM's fudged to make it that way. That is shockingly and sadly true. William says, "That's why I struggle to run campaign books / adventure paths. I feel like a passenger GM to the book." I agree. And quite frankly, I mean, that's what they want you to do, right? Like the books are designed to get your players from A to B, you know, with A being level 1, B being level 20, you know, or level 10 or whatever the ending is. And they just kind of, let's go around the line and just, you know, get our levels, get our feats, and keep, you know, checking the boxes of the quest and keep following along. And, you know, there we go. Whatever, as long as we're gaining levels. Amen. Yes, my woodworking skill go. I miss woodworking, you know. 2024, I didn't build anything, and then my wood shop burned down. So 2024, I did not get to build anything. That sucks. Yeah, 3 players is awesome, Thaddeus. Derek says, "If I was building a studio table, I'd build it like a blackjack table." That's not bad. Yeah, that's actually probably pretty good too. I don't mind that. Like an area for the GM, and then just like the players kind of circling around you. Yeah, that would work. I'm in a game that is wrapping up next week, and I am being faced with the knowledge I'll likely never play this character again, and I hate that. Man, we are so different, Beowulf. But see, you think in terms of characters, you know? I think in terms of arcs. I think in terms of stories. This may actually shed some light on how I'm different than some people. there are for a lot of media, okay, I watch a movie so that I can find out basically what happens, what are the story beats, and what was the arc, and what was the resolution. But I can get that by reading like the Wikipedia plot summary, right? Spoiler, if you will. And for me, I'm only watching the movie basically to get the plot summary for the most part. I mean, don't get me wrong. Sometimes performances do stand out. There's particularly emotional moments. Of course, those happen. I mean, that's a given. But for the most part, for most movies, I'm actually very satisfied just reading the plot summary, because not the script, just the plot summary. Just because all I really want to know is what happened. I don't really care about the particulars, and I don't really care about the dialogue. I just want the 10,000 foot view. So, I think that kind of coincides to the way that I approach RPGs as well. Yes, we are very different. Yes, I know. I definitely know. But yeah, so for me, the individual characterization of a role-playing game just does not matter at all. It just never has. Well, there we go. Any final thoughts from our friends here in chat before we wrap up? We have 40 people. We're up to 50 at one point, so that's pretty good. Oh, absolutely. But like I said, there don't be wrong. There are emotional moments. There are great moments that I really enjoy. But if I'm being honest, Beowulf, there are some movies that I rewatch and I kind of just fast forward to get to the parts that I want to watch, and then I watch that part, and then I fast forward to like the next part that I want to watch, and then I put the movie away. So, that does happen sometimes. It's true. If you're just looking at the story, don't all of them resolve the same basic things over and over? Isn't that dull? Well, bad stories do. Each story has kind of a unique, or if they're interesting, each story has sort of a unique element or sort of resolution that sort of makes it distinct and makes it stand out. Also, I'm not playing RPG. I don't know about you people, but I'm not playing RPGs with Matt Mercer. I'm not playing RPGs with skilled thespians. The shit that we're coming up with, just quite frankly, isn't that good. So, the idea might be awesome, right? The general sense of it might be great, but let's call it what it is. The execution is lacking, Bob may have a really cool idea, and it's like a really inspired, like, you're like, wow, that's a really fun idea. Like, wow, that's a cool idea. But then watching Bob, struggle to role play his Shugenja or something like that. It's not, that's not going to like make me like stand up and cheer. But yeah, that's what I think, so again, I'm not coming in for the thrilling dialogue and the thrilling things. Don't get me wrong. There have been a few exceptions to that. No, those are great, but that's not what I'm banking on, right? That's not what I'm counting on. I love the evolution of an idea. I love the emergent growth of a story narrative and watching how it changes based off of how the dice roll and people interpret those dice rolls and the decisions they make after that point. So again, the focus for me is always on, the story, and there's a scene, there's a statement. I can't remember who said it. Like, no line of dialogue is worth a scene. No scene is worth an act. No act is worth a movie, or something like that. And I kind of basically, think of the same thing. It's interesting here. You said movies you consume, RPGs you live. It's different. And Eric, I think that Beowulf would agree with you. However, now, and I don't necessarily know that I disagree with you. All I know is that I don't really live RPGs. I am always very aware and totally fine with the fact that like we're playing a game and I'm using my character to explore this game space, explore this situation, explore this character arc, explore, you know, I never like get into a character that doesn't, you know, I never want to stop being me is basically what it comes down to, you know, like, why would I want to be anybody else? I'm me, you know? So, and I mean, I'm not trying to say that to like in a conceited way. I'm just saying I'm totally happy being Derek playing with Bob and Smith and Kaz and George and Tim. And we are playing a game. Now that game could be anything. It could be Axis and Allies. It could be a role-playing game. But which of those games is going to create the best, most memorable experiences and moments and stories that we're telling at each other's, you know, birthday parties 10 years from now or 20 years from now, or that I'm putting into their best man speech at their wedding? Well, historically, RPGs have produced the best stories. They have produced the best shared experiences, the best shared moments, those best sort of nostalgic memories that live rent-free, right, in my head. So RPGs are my primary love because that's what I'm after, right? I'm after those moments. I'm after those experiences. I'm after that act of creation. I don't really care about the individual characterization, and nor do I care about the individual characters. It's a kind of a joke amongst our group that most of the time, like, we very rarely remember people's characters' names. Like, we just don't. I don't even remember my own character name a lot of the time, if I'm being honest with you. True story. I'm here to watch Bob screw up planning sneaking entrances with explosives. Right, Damien, that was a great moment. And I am more than happy if I read that in a plot summary. I would be like, wow, I didn't expect to see that. But that's the kind of fun, moment that can happen in an RPG campaign. But I'm like, I'm glad that moment happened. It's only when I can look back at that and be like, how do you put that into the context of a movie? That'd be hilarious. It would be stupid and dumb, of course, but it would be like something out of Monty Python. But that's great. That's cool. But like, do I care like about Bob being like saying something in character or like, giving really great visual details of the way he places the explosive. No, I don't care about any of that. It's like that XP to level 3 who admittedly does some pretty funny skits, but he does that one where they joke that like, oh, they sent their DM like to watch some Critical Role videos. And like, he walks in and like the critical roll. And he comes in and he's like, you enter the inn. It smells of elderberry and wine. People are laughing. Ha 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 ha. And the bartender looks you straight in the eye. So, you looking for work? Yeah, we're looking for work. He takes a bottle, bloop, and then pours you a mug. Glug, glug, glug. Yeah, drink this. It tastes of something, I mean, that was like, like, no, I don't want any of that. Whatever that is, he's making fun of it. Whatever that Critical Role style is, I want none of that. I want absolutely none of that. Damien says, I'm here to watch Bob screw up planning things. A couple of grand of paying this channel later, it hooked me. Well, look, at least we got you in the end. I commented on that vid, said the GM was way better after watching the CR vids. No. Oh God. They're making fun of him for being terrible. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, Beowulf, that right there is cut and dry, right? You said the GM was way better after watching the Critical Role vids. You would love to play with that GM. I hate that GM. I do not want to play with that GM. And I would be like those players in that video, right? Exasperated and annoyed. Yeah, I don't, I don't get me wrong. I mean, I described to live and I want people to, have enough nuggets of information so that they can, understand for their own internal recognizing what does this situation look like or what does this situation feel like. But mostly I'm interested in what do you do? Yeah. What's the next thing? What happens next? Okay, great. But what happens next, right? What happens next? What happens next? What happens next? What happens next? That's what we're here for. That's why I'm hanging out with you all, because entertain me. Go, my monkeys, entertain me. I am your dungeon master. Entertain me. If you're at my table, you're lucky if you get descriptions. All right, now look, we can be a little bit long in the tooth. That could be pushing it a bit far, but I do think that some descriptions is value. If Beowulf says his exact comment was, if I was in that gaming group, I'd keep the DM and throw out the players. Talk about the XP to level 3. Well, Damien, that's at least good. Again, I think most people overdo it. I'm not saying that you should be nothing, but I think most people way overdo it, and they end up being cringy like that XP to level 3 thing. Yeah. I think somewhere around 15 to 20% Mercer style is probably all you need. 3 bullet points. And that's it. You're not writing a novel. It's not even about you, it's about the players. It's about the PCs. It's about their actions. The only thing I'm trying to do with my description is make sure that they understand what the fictional setting is, right? What the fiction is, so that they can interact with it properly and that they can make informed decisions, right? It's all back to me, to player agency. And I don't want them to, and if they want more information, they'll certainly ask about it. But I also never want to hoodwink them and say well, I didn't tell you about that. And if you hadn't asked about that, it would have fucked you over. I also don't want to do that either, right? So, but that's true, Eric. That's not Mercer is not running a game. You are absolutely right. He is running a show. And it's the same way that I'm sure most, stand-up comedians and most Broadway singers probably don't talk the same way they talk in a show as they do in a normal conversation, right? They are doing something different. They're talking, but they're doing it for a show. They're doing it for presentation. They're doing it for effect. That's not how they talk, to that end. We don't necessarily know that, Beowulf. But also, too, he's a voice acting theater kid playing with a group of voice acting theater kids who all live in Hollywood and are all actors or voice actors. So, yeah. If that's your group, you get my permission. If it's not your group, I do not give. Oh, I would also settle for 25% of Mercer's pay. Look, Mercer is a very beautiful man. The long flowing locks, and come to think of it, yeah, I don't know. I kind of think what's his name? Laura's husband. I think he's probably the best looking guy in the group. All right. Hold a sec here. Let me Travis. That's it. All right, Travis. All right. Start a poll. Best looking guy in Critical Role. All right. So is it Mercer or is it Matt? Is it Travis? I'm going to butcher the spelling of his name. Taljan. I don't know exactly how to spell it. Who else am I forgetting here? No, I just changed it because I was using everybody else's first names, and then I didn't want to use first names. Sam, and then let me give a fifth one. No. All right. Well, all right. You know what? Yeah. Sorry, Liam. You don't get it because YouTube will only let me put 4 people. All right. So, who's the best looking guy in Critical Role? Is it Matt, Travis, Taliesin, or Sam? Again, sorry, Liam. It only lets us do things. I'm not including Robbie because he's. Hey, I wasn't horribly off with the spelling of this guy's name. Oh, look at that. Travis out to an early start. It's great. Sam, no votes. I'll give this a couple minutes. Yeah, we're doing the poll right now, Eric. I've never watched Critical Role. KLC is the first AP I've ever watched. I tried to watch like 1 or 2 episodes of Critical Role, and I was like, I cannot do it. All right. Well, looks like we're not getting any more votes for that. 7 votes. All right. Travis is the clear winner. So Travis is a clear winner. Now, all right, who is the best looking female? So our choices here are Laura Bailey, Marisha, and Ashley. All right. All right, this one I'm interested because I know who my personal favorite is. I just don't want to influence everybody. There is a right answer here. Let's just see how we go. Is it weird that I pronounce KOLC as Kolsch? Actually, Derek, the official pronunciation is Kulk, like Kulk, so, but it's also kind of a play on word of cock, but it's like Kulk, but it's kind of supposed to sound like Kulk. Yeah, so it's Kulk. Kulk LLC is what we call it. Jokingly, we just no really calls it that, but Kolsch. Kolsch is okay. Kulk is the official way. Yeah. Kulk. Yeah, Lance got it right. Yeah, exactly. Oh, yeah, of course. I almost assuredly Smith. Give this another minute, and then we'll probably wrap it up. Hey, I want to say thanks to everybody, by the way, for the tips. We're over 10% towards our new top-down camera goal fund, so that's exciting. So yeah, we'll probably be able to knock that out. Maybe in a month or so, and maybe by Christmas time or whatever, we can try some new setups and try some new stuff, and maybe we can do some other different stuff. And the patrons were talking about, because I was randomly showing some of my doodle drawings that I do. I make like random dungeon drawings, and my patrons were like, "Oh, that looks that looks cool. Like, you should draw those on stream." And I was like, "Do you guys want me to do even worse performing than I already do, like in terms of YouTube metrics?" They're like, no, you should make it like a marathon stream, and like people can tip to like add another room or add a new thing to the random encounter table, and it'll be a quiet kind of ASMR, like you'll just be drawing your map. And I was like, that actually sounds kind of cool, and we'll just keep tipping to keep you going. And I was like, that sounds kind of cool, I will admit. All right, well, the poll's going to end at 75%. Laura Bailey got the number 1, and that is the correct answer. She is a fine looking lady, but in the RPG space, Becca Scott is the GOAT. She's by far the finest of the fine. Becca, if you ever get divorced, call me. Anyways, Booth 100% agree. Absolutely, buddy. Absolutely. All right. Okay. So we can all agree. All right. We're all agreeing here, and that's what's most important. The stream got cringe. Look, we're just talking about which members of the Critical Role cast were the best looking. I personally thought Travis, and Travis won, and Laura. And by the way, they're married. So can you imagine how beautiful their kids are? My God. I don't know if they have kids. I don't know anything about them personally, but anyways, so with that in mind, we're going to wrap up. John Harper's the GOAT. Changed the way I play games. Blades in the Dark, I think, is still my favorite system to run. And they have a kid named Ronan. I don't know if I can get behind naming your kid Ronan, but that's all right. We have, I don't know, a dozen more streams left, I think, for the rest of the year. We'll have to see what we're doing on Thursday. No, I guess it's not next Thursday. It's in 2 Thursdays. Is Thanksgiving here in the U.S. Historically, we have not done a Thursday stream because most people are pretty busy on Thursdays. Those have done pretty badly. But now Ronan is different than Ronin, right? So let's be very clear that that's different. Ronin versus Ronan. Or Ronin versus Ronin, as in like the, whatever. Yes, exactly. I don't want any sort of, affront to the celestial order in my house. You masterless vagabond, you wave man, go get yourself a lore like a proper samurai and be a part of the social order. Anyways, we got a bunch of streams coming up. Pathfinder 2 streams. I don't know what else we're going to talk about. We did Eldamon, which was a lot of fun. But definitely a couple Pathfinder 2 streams. We'll figure out stuff. We're probably gonna take a look at Slug Blaster. That did very well in the poll today. That was the second runner-up. Damien is still screaming that they came from to nobody. He's screaming into the void. I don't know. As for me personally, I am still working on Dragon Tide because I'd like to launch that in the new year for our patrons. And for us, our community Dragon Bane game. And personally, I am trying to figure out how or where or why I can run my my Torchbearer game for some patrons, and then try to get another game going too. Torchbearer is one that I really want to play. I'm really interested to see how well it works with a group of people who are legitimately interested in playing it. To be fair to my play group, that was one of those ones where they took one on the chin for me. They were willing to play, with me for that because I was excited, and they didn't really want to. And so I respect them for that. But if I get a group of players who are really interested in the game, I'm interested to see what it can do, and then run something else like a Blades in the Dark game or a Fabula Ultima game or an Avatar game, and that'd be a lot of fun. So, and then I still got to figure out what we're going to do for our Fridays. So Kaz is back, so he's a big part of our group. So going to try to figure out if there's something we can play. Maybe we'll play something online, just to make it easier for people throughout the holidays. So I was talking to my buddy George about that just last week. So, all right, folks. When I looked up Slug Blaster, the name of the game made even less sense to me. Listen, I don't expect, hyper flip, doing a dimensional hyper kick flip over a centipede, something. It kind of went over my head too. But you know what? That's what we're here to do. We're here to learn. We're here to risk. We're here to grow. All right, everybody. That's going to do it for me. Thank you for joining. If you want to see more of us, like, comment, subscribe. Let us know what you'd like to see in our last remaining streams of the year. And if you want to be part of all this and be part of our community, check out our Patreon. Link in the description below. Again, shout out and thank you to the incredible patrons who make this whole shebang possible. And shout out to Duncan, Thaddeus, and Brayflox for the awesome tipping tonight. I really appreciate it, and I'm looking forward to that. Just because we've had this kind of static setup. We don't have the studio right now, so it'd be fun to kind of try to be able to do some different types of shows and content. All right, everybody, that is going to do it for me. I'll see you next time on Knights of Last Call.